Hello, welcome to Gimme Empathy. It's a podcast where I talk to people about their brains. I'm your host, Scott Mercer. I'm a person that scurries around Brisbane and does things. On this episode, this is another old one. To cut a long and boring story short, there was a podcast I tried to start before this one a long time ago, and I never got it off the ground, but I recorded a few episodes of it, and now I'm putting some of them up there because they've not been heard very much before, and they're somewhat worth hearing, I think. This episode was recorded in May 2013 with patients Hodgson and John Patterson, who make up the band The Grates. The Grates are a very important band to me. They were my first real hometown heroes when I was starting to get into music. My sister took me to the big day out shortly after I graduated high school, and the Grates were one of the first bands I remember seeing there. And all I remember was like a blur of motion as Patience, the singer, was just bouncing and jumping all across the stage and yelling and yelping. And we went to see him again pretty soon after at the Tivoli, which was an awesome show. They played with I Heart Hiroshima and the Panda Band. And something about them I found really inspiring. And the very first self-recorded piece of shit EP I ever made started with me trying to record a cover of their song Feels Like Pain. I really liked the oddball energy they brought to everything, the music, the visual, the performance. And they've stayed one of my favorite bands through the years. So when I finally got to interview them for this, it was pretty special. I originally emailed Patience kind of out of the blue and asked if she wanted to sit down and chat. And she asked if it was okay if John sat in as well. And I was thrilled because through most of the band's run, John always seemed like the quiet one to me, like he didn't get interviewed a lot. So I was very happy that they decided to do it together. Patience and John started a romantic relationship while the band was going, but they kept it secret for quite a few years. And I think it wasn't too long after they kind of came out with that publicly that I recorded this podcast. I caught them at a really interesting time in their life because they were between music projects. They just opened their café, Southside Tea Room at Morningside. The band was pretty inactive, and I don't think they'd been interviewed for a long time. And I think they kind of enjoyed talking, which was really good because they didn't seem bored of talking about anything. They also hadn't had kids together yet, and so they felt they could have a bit more time. This is a really long episode. I talked to them for about 3.5 hours. I made them late for their staff meeting at Southside. I did edit it down, of course. So just a warning, if you're used to the normal podcast running, if you time this to your commute, maybe it's half an hour into work, half an hour back every day, and you kind of time it. This one's going to last you a few days. But they were so open in this chat about some things that bands aren't always open about conflicts within their band, including why the original drummer Alana Skyring left, and also the conflicts they had with some of their producers. You just don't really hear bands talk about this stuff in this way that often. Being 5 years ago, I wasn't a great interviewer. I listening back, I realized I asked a lot more closed questions, saying, so did you do this or did you do this, rather than leaving them open. There's a few other things. John's voice keeps cutting out throughout the whole thing, you'll notice. He doesn't have as good mic technique as Patience. So the reason he keeps cutting out is because he keeps turning his head to look at Patience, who was next to him on the couch while he was talking, and he did not move the microphone with him. Patience, who has her own podcast, was a bit better on the mics. You may also be able to hear their cat Mallory scratching the back of the couch a few times. But it was amazing being able to talk to two people who are my absolute musical heroes 5 years ago. I think it's pretty comprehensive. We didn't leave many stones unturned. So strap in. It's a very long one. Episode 31 of Gimme Empathy, originally recorded as an episode of Only Talking Sense 5 years ago. This is Patience, Hodgson and John Patterson.
So are you dairy free? Is that why you didn't have any milk?
Oh, no. I just heard it's not good for the voice. Like the cream does something to...
Bad for mucus.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Sometimes I adhere by that rule and other times I don't.
Yeah.
When things are going bad, I adhere by that rule.
Patience, what was your favourite song when you were 12 years old?
12. So what would that be? Would I be in grade 7?
Grade 7.
Right.
Probably Stay by Lisa Loeb. I've a feeling it was pretty
Sway?
much... No.
Stay.
Yes. Oh, you'll say?
I don't know.
I think it's Stay.
Right.
Stay.
Oh, no, I was thinking about Big Roomba.
Stay. Yeah,
All
it's
right,
Stay.
And so at that time, were you just sort of a pop kind of kid?
Definitely, well and truly, I was completely pop because my older sister, she'd gone off the rails and she listened to Nirvana and Run DMC and...
Naughty kid music.
Yeah, totally. I totally had that as naughty kid music. And I did not want to upset my mum by listening to anything that any naughty kids might listen to. She's 8 years older than me. So a kid of the 90s, 8 years older, her being off the rails is pretty off the rails.
John, how about you? At age 12, what was your favourite song?
Like Björk, It's Oh So Quiet, or Alanis Morissette. Alanis Morissette was the first record I bought, and Björk was like the first CD single I bought.
Björk is like totally legit. That's amazing that you were listening to that.
Well, it was kind of like a pop hit.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't listening to Triple J or I was just listening to B105.
Yeah.
Like not understanding why I liked some things and why I didn't like other things.
Did you guys take a lot of musical influences from stuff your parents listened to?
Not really.
Nah, I don't think so. My parents weren't very musically inclined. What they did listen to was like those psychedelia of the 60s mixes and stuff like that. Like my dad would occasionally put them on and it would just be like he'd got a 3 CD box set and that was it. That was the only things that I really remember. And Meatloaf, like my dad loved Meatloaf. But
yeah, my dad loved Don McLean. Like my dad and mum loved Don McLean together and just had every single Don McLean album. But then never really listened to those, only really listened to like mum didn't ever listen to music and dad only listened to like 50s rock, like pre-Beatles,
really
like Buddy
old.
Holly.
And John, you started to learn piano when you were fairly young, didn't you?
Yeah, probably like 6 to 5 or something.
Was that something like your parents sort of pushed you into, or did you really want to at the time?
I probably just pushed.
Yeah.
And I always found it weird that I was learning like all this other people's music, but never encouraged to make my own music. Like every time I'd like show my mum something I made up on the piano, she was like really dismissive. So it was never encouraged in my house to write music, just to learn music.
But so you did like experiment on your own a lot and make up your own things? Not
really until I was like 15 or 16. Like I probably would have if I was encouraged, but I just never was. So I draw a lot and I'd practice piano like every day, but I didn't like practicing it that much. I'd watch we had like a digital piano, so I'd put headphones in so my parents could still watch TV, and then I just turned down the volume and like face one of the photo like family photos so I could see the reflection of the TV, and I'd just watch TV and pretend.
Oh my gosh.
But it's hard to sort of enjoy, I think, practicing the piano when you just have like a crappy little electronic one when you're young, I think.
Yeah, I started this piano that's here. That was the first piano I had, and then my auntie took it back, and then we got a digital piano, and it was like top of the line, but it's just nothing on a real piano.
Yeah,
and then I just got that back like when we moved into this.
Should I tell the listeners that we're recording in our lounge room, and that in our lounge room is the piano. Is the old, I don't know, it's just brown, it's got keys, black and white, sounds pretty good.
It's got a logo on it, what's that say?
Kawaii.
Oh, it's just kawaii, yeah. There's also a cat, Mallory, wandering in and out if you hear any jingles or scratching noises on the back of the couch.
Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't even know really that you had that thought when you were a kid, that you thought hey, why aren't I being encouraged to like make stuff up? That's really interesting that you had that brain.
Yeah.
Were you encouraged to draw stuff
Yeah. I was more encouraged to draw than
rather than music?
write music. Yeah.
That's just what happens.
It's always weird. Like,
Yeah.
every parent has opinions. Like you hear your mum's opinion. Like I'd ask my mum for advice, and then I wouldn't take it. She'd get super pissed off.
And so your drawing, was that like did that start just like doodling in the margins in your books, or did you set out to create artworks like paintings and things like that?
More doodling.
Yeah.
I think it's like always like ambitious with. I was more ambitious with drawing when I was like in primary school. Thought I wanted to be an animator.
How old were you when you met Alana Skyring?
12.
And you guys went to Alex Hills together?
Yeah.
What kind of kids were you at school? Like, were you in part of a clique, or did you just sort of do your own thing? Or
Guess I was like a little clique, arty nerds.
Yeah, that's how I describe you when I first met you guys.
Yeah.
I assumed that you were part of like...
We're above like the
Yeah.
regular nerds but below like everyone else
yeah.
Yeah.
on the chain.
Patience, you grew up on Macleay Island.
Yeah.
Your friend Mel Buttle has summed up your adolescence as Big Mouth, Small Island.
Yes.
Would you say that's an accurate representation of...
Yeah, I think that was definitely me on Macleay as the big mouth of the tiny island, of the small island. I actually originally grew up in Wynnum. Yeah, I lived in Wynnum West for ages. We lived in like a cul-de-sac as part, like in housing commission. That was like the joy of my life, living in a cul-de-sac. Because it was like the housing commission estate, so everyone knew each other, and I just rollerbladed every day, and there was heaps of bush around us because it was in Wynnum West. So we'd just all go exploring through the bush all the time, and that was super duper fun. And then at the end of grade 8, we moved to Macleay, just because Mum hated living in the housing commission, especially in a cul-de-sac, because it was that was a clique. It was so small, and just everyone knew each other's business too much, and no one else had worked. Like occasionally somebody's husband worked, but everyone was just home all the time.
Which would have been great as a kid for you.
Awesome as a kid.
But not necessarily great if you were a parent.
Totally. It was I think Mum hated it just because there was always, like no one worked, so everyone was just
And she would have been like the
house.
center
She was.
point of the cul-de-sac as well. And
Yeah.
it would have been, I'm sure there was just people like coming in.
There was.
All the time.
All the time. Like I remember having
Drunks walking through the front door.
visions of my mum cleaning the house, like vacuuming, going around our house with 2 women behind her just talking. And that happened all the time. So my mum ended up just almost having, I think she had like a breakdown where she was like, I can't do it. We gotta go. And we moved to Macleay Island. I was really isolated, the exact opposite of growing up in that little housing commission area. And I think I was the only kid that loved it. Everyone else hated it. I thought it was awesome.
Like your siblings hated it? Or?
No, just all the
other kids
teenagers.
who were there. Yeah.
They just thought it was lame, and because everyone on the mainland hated, like, we'd call your island rats, and you weren't as cool as anyone that lived on the mainland. But I loved it. I got to go to the beach every afternoon for my entire teenage years. It was cool.
Yeah, so you had your island people and like your
mainland.
mainland people,
Yeah.
and you went to school at Cleveland.
Yes.
All right. You mentioned before on your podcast that while all you islanders were sort of a solid group while you're at school,
Yes.
on the way home on the ferry, you split further into the groups who lived on the 4 islands out there in Moreton Bay, and there was a lot of conflict between those groups.
Yeah. There was always a lot of conflict, especially between Macleay and Russell Island, because they were the 2 biggest.
The big ones, yeah.
And so it was always a power struggle between Macleay Island students and Russell Island students as to who, like, was the alpha island.
And you got in a few fights?
Yes, mainly with the same culprit, though. I remember I had to bleep her name out of the podcast, but her first name was Roxanne. We're allowed to say that. Yeah, a few years in a row, there was that big conflict with Roxanne. She was an intimidating force to be reckoned with, because I remember being a scrappy 14, 15-year-old girl that hadn't really developed breasts or anything yet, and Roxanne was like fully developed. She was a buxom lady who smoked. But I wasn't going to take any shit.
Yeah, neither of you were the sort of person to take shit from each other.
So then, of course, we probably had more fights than the boys had.
Yeah. You all met, you two and Alana, when you did a drama class, which was at Alex Hills TAFE, is that right? Which is next to the school.
Yeah.
That you all did to get out of sport.
Yeah, you had like a choice between sport and doing a course.
Yeah.
And all the courses, like I did one in animation and one in Photoshop before I did the drama one. You did like rocket building.
I did hilarious things.
And,
I did aquarium building, rocket building, and computer building. I don't know anything about any of those other 3 things. And then I did the drama course. That was really fun. That was cool. And that was like my first experience like outside of Cleveland High in a way. Like Cleveland High wasn't very alternative. Cleveland High had like students that filtered in from all of the islands and from Stradbroke Island. So it was a real surf culture, and I think because it was sort of near the water, it was a very, very surf orientated school. Like it was like flooded with Billabong and Roxy brand tags. So when I met John and Alana at TAFE, I had my mind blown because these were like legitimately alternative kids that were doing this course. Full on, you had a lot of facial hair. You were wearing grandpa pants and...
I was wearing my granddad. I wore my granddad's clothes. For years.
Yeah. Do you have black fingernails for a while, or was that when you were a bit older?
Yeah. I'd wear like weird hats sometimes.
And I was like, these people are great. I loved it.
Were you attracted to the drama class also because of the performative aspect of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Patience was the star of the drama class too.
I don't think I was.
She was.
What? No way. Yeah. I don't believe that. There was like another girl that was the star, I think. I can't remember. I don't think so.
So had there been much opportunity back at Cleveland to get up and do performance type things? Was there a drama program there?
Yeah, I was part of the drama program there. I was probably in the top, closer to the top of the class than the bottom, but I was definitely not the best at it. But I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I think my best moment came when I did that play.
Oh, that your play?
Yeah, I
wrote
to
a play
write
as
2
well.
plays. I think that's when I finally was like, that was when I was actually recognised by the teacher. She was loving it.
Too. Even though it's not like anything that I have any connection to, but like at the time in school, it was like really had a cool teacher. I could be really loud in front of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John's really quiet in front of people now, but when I first met him, he was really loud.
Oh, really?
Not really loud, just loud moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you wrote a play in high school, Toe Jam.
Yep.
But before that, you even put on your own production of Jesus Christ Superstar.
That's right. I forgot about that when I was in primary school.
Primary school, that's an amazing
I just like
achievement.
bossing people around. I think that was it. I really enjoyed just being in charge, probably. Felt like I had a vision that needed executing.
What were your first impressions on meeting each other? John, when you and Alana met Patience?
We walked back to our friend's house across the oval for like the lunch break in the drama course, and I said to Alana, "Oh, that Patience girl, she's a fox." and then Alana was like, "She's like a cheerleader." I don't know. She's like, Alana was not impressed, and I was like, "She's a fox." I remember saying fox.
Nice term.
And Patience, you were really impressed with how cool and arty.
I was very impressed. I remember after like one of the really first couple of classes, I was like to Alana, "Does John have a girlfriend?" And then she was like, "No, why? Do you like John?" And I was like, nah, don't. Just inquiring, just wondering.
Was there that kind of like defensive thing with you and Alana? Like she was trying to protect you against this strange
like
girl?
Alana and I went out for like, we were like 15 for like 2 months or something.
Yeah.
So like
she didn't mind cutting her grass.
Yeah.
You were her turf, even though you weren't going out anymore. Totally. No, I was really impressed with John and Alana. I remember having lots of conversations with my mum being like, they were like no one else I'd ever met before. They were just super motivated and like, yeah, I just never met anyone like that. I remember when my little brother was born, I was hanging out nappies on the clothesline. And I think I'd just done something with you guys. And I was telling my mum, like, that's who I want to be like. I want to be like John and Alana. They're so motivated and then they do so many things. And I remember being just really impressed that John and Alana were in a band together already at school. Alana was also like in another band called, started Gimme or something.
Gypped.
Gypped. That's right. They were in a band. She was in a band called Gypped, and I was super impressed that they could play instruments, and they would put on, like, you guys had stuff to do with the Redlands Shire Council, like putting on
we'd always
gigs.
be like, we'd be involved like in putting in shows in the Redlands and stuff, like putting on festivals, and I'd do like the posters for all the festivals and stuff that they did down there.
Yeah, and I just never met anyone that was just like actively being involved in
But
their lives.
with you, I don't think I'd ever met anyone with less pretension, but like no guard as well. Like you just weren't afraid to just be yourself and have no.
Yeah, that's nice. Thanks.
When did you first start playing guitar, John?
Like 15 or 16, because I wanted to write something, even though. I don't know. I wasn't comfortable like writing on the piano because I had to practice it every day. It's just I didn't feel connected to it. So. And
guitar, was that like something a bit more, I don't know, visceral, like when in the playing of it, or
yeah, and just loud. Yeah, I learnt like a bar chord off one of my friends, and then that's just what I did. I just moved it around.
Yeah. That's what you do in high school.
Yeah.
And so you already had a band with Alana in school.
Yeah, like half kind of.
And so what kind of music were you playing back then?
We were like, I don't know, it was weird. Like,
is this Zombie Crime Boss?
No, like before Zombie Crime Boss, it was like we'd be trying to do like we like the Beastie Boys and like we were like trying to be like somewhere between like the Beastie Boys, John Spencer Blues Explosion or something. I don't know.
They were
like
definitely
we were using keyboards like but like really shitty like we didn't know what like we were just trying out anything. Songs really quickly and just enjoying playing them noisily.
When you left school and you sort of got past the 18 plus zone, were you pretty involved in the music scene from the get-go?
Yeah, a little bit. Like we were just trying to. We didn't know what we were doing, so we were just putting on. We were putting on our own shows and asking people to come to them. And before we kind of fell in with a bunch of other people that were putting on shows that would ask us to play. You know, we won like a TAFE band competition in the city once. And they were supposed to give us like two paid shows as like the prize, but they only gave us one.
Was that the band Gypped by a?
No, it was Zombie Crime Boss.
Oh, this was Zombie Crime Boss. Yeah.
I wasn't in Gypped. I didn't like Gypped.
So you went to TAFE doing graphic design?
Yeah, illustration.
Illustration, yeah. And so was that something you really want to pursue as a career at that point?
Yeah, graphic design, but then like that's what I applied for at uni. Me and Alana applied for like exactly the same things, but she got like 1 point higher on her OP and got into university, and I got into TAFE doing illustration. But then as soon as I did, I was like so glad that I didn't go to uni. I realized it's like TAFE's much more, it's freer and more hands-on. So then I wanted to be like an illustrator. I didn't really want to be a designer.
Yeah.
But you were heaps involved in so many of her assignments anyways. You almost did the university course.
Yeah, I knew what uni was like and I didn't want to go there.
So you formed a bunch of bands with Alana, Zombie Crime Boss, as you said, which had these, huge, crazy keyboard sounds, these really gothic organ type things. Were you playing organ?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were doing the organs. There was Two Winds.
Yep.
And that one had kind of a prototypical Grates kind of sound to it. It had your guitar, your really distinctive guitar tone for the first time. It had those quacking kind of chords.
Yeah.
Where did you get that guitar?
I got it on eBay, like for $60.
Is it a Harmony guitar?
It's
Harmony Bobcat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I only found that out like 2 years ago.
Oh, we only found it out, when we were
recording the last record because the producers got obsessed with it. I'm like, I'd never really used it on a record before, though, only really live.
Man, it was really funny.
But then the last record, it's all I used.
They literally got obsessed with that guitar in like an addictive kind of weird way.
He bought three guitars to try and recreate the sound of mine.
Yeah.
And then realized it's because like my the
warped?
scratch plate is warped and it's lifted the pickup slightly higher
towards
the strings on mine than other guitars. So then he got his modified to like do the same thing. He got it like totally obsessed with it.
But also your pickup, is it what amps or ohms or whatever it emits, like the electrical pulse or something that your pickup emits, like on his guitar, one of the ones that he bought wasn't emitting the same number of, and he used like some little measuring thing to meter it. And then so he scoured the internet and found one that emitted the same electrical whatever, and he bought that, and then he got that on the guitar and then got it modified higher, and he was like, this is going to be it.
I gotta say with the Twins thing, I did like that. It's even surprising that you've heard it. I did it all like one song a day for a week while I was like, I had a girl from high school. That was my sister, like that was my girlfriend's little sister on work experience with me as a work experience assignment. And I was just like, we just like hung out on the computer for a week, and then she'd leave and I'd write a song.
Wow.
That was the only songs I wrote for it in that week.
At this point, were you out and about listening to local bands a lot?
Yeah. It was like KT26s were really kind of exciting. They sounded like the Pixies, but really Brisbane at the same time. And Turnpike,
yeah. It was still going.
Yeah.
Trying to think
James
of stuff.
Kritzler's, all his, everything he was doing.
Was it like always something to see in the city like there is nowadays?
Well, the Valley for sure. Back then it was like Rick's, I think, had more of was like a focal point.
It was Rachel
Johnson.
Johnson was booking Rick's, and I reckon she was doing like the best job.
She did the best job.
She cared so much more than anyone like before or after her.
She's definitely had a massive, I think she's
Nightstick as well. Like that was just like right at the start of it.
But I think she had like she's probably had a massive influence on like Brisbane bands around that time that doesn't exist anymore because she doesn't book Rick's anymore, and Rick's is now owned by RGs and stuff like that. Back then Rick's used to be independent, and she cared so much and she was so involved in so many things. She really nurtured, just through Rick's, I think she really nurtured the Brisbane music scene.
And she'd like if I emailed her about like playing a show or something with any band, she'd always like write a really nice, like she'd be really encouraging and supportive.
Or it's hard to get a reply these days from most venues.
No, it's hard for me to like give a reply with our shop. Like, I don't reply to everyone.
What's she doing now, Rachel Johnson?
She's doing all the visual, like she does Strictly and Lowdown visuals for like festivals. Like she does most of the big visuals for all of it.
She's in Portland today.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I saw her on Instagram.
According to legend, Patience, you discovered that you could sing while doing A Whole New World at karaoke, and then you had the idea together to join a band while watching Rage.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Kind of. I didn't have the idea that I could sing, but I had the idea that I could embarrass myself comfortably in front of people. I think that's what happened when we did A Whole New World.
Yeah.
Because I just did a really terrible job at it because I wasn't going to try singing proper, but I was like,
but that was the first time we performed music together.
That was the first time we performed music together. So John and I did a duet for his girlfriend's birthday, her 18th. I think I'd always kind of enjoyed singing. I used to be in the choir just as a little kid. I used to sing in the shower as a teenager. I'd always enjoyed it, but it wasn't like I didn't go to singing lessons or follow anything through. I just enjoyed it like I think any teenage girl would. And then, we were watching Rage, and it was this Cisco, what is it, this something club, Salto.
No, is it even club? I
can't remember. It's like
with Cisco?
Something Experience. Something.
Yeah.
Kato Salsa Experience. That band.
We saw them, so they had a film clip on, and then I was just like being naive and arrogant, which is a great combination when you're under 20. And I was like, I can do that. You guys are in a band. And I just thought this song, I was like, we could write a song at least that good. And if we could write a song at least that good, it might get played on Rage. So we should do it. And then John was like, all right.
I'd heard about like John Safran got his niece to just carry around a camera and make some noise, and then he sent the tape into Rage and they played it on Rage. and I thought, you just can get onto Rage. Like, there's nothing stopping anybody.
That's great.
Did they know it was John Safran?
No, I think it was like a prank he pulled for something.
Yeah, but he opened your eyes to the possibilities.
Yeah.
That was great. Thank you, John Safran. He contributed.
So you started a band together, you two and Alana. You're jamming together for a few months, but then Patience, you moved to the UK?
Yep.
Why'd you move to the UK at that point?
Just because I thought, why not? My TAFE, I studied ceramics at TAFE. I didn't finish it. Got too stressful. And I just thought it would be I just thought it was the right thing to do. Like, people go overseas.
Rite of passage.
Rite of passage. My older sister, the one who listened to Nirvana and all of the bad kid music, she had a rough trot. Like, she was like a heroin addict and stuff for quite a few years. So when she cleaned up and got sober, she moved to England. So it was natural for me to go over there and to spend time with her. And I just worked at Blockbuster saving money and got enough money and got a heritage visa so I could go there for 4 years because my grandfather was Welsh. And that was it. I just went over there and lived with her only for a few months. So at that time I went with my boyfriend and 2 of our friends, and they went straight to Scotland, whereas we went and hung out in this little tiny town called Whitchurch. So I was only there for a couple of months. It wasn't really any work. I ended up getting a job in a cafe, but it was still, there was like no work in this town. It was a really boring small town. And one of my mates in Scotland got hit by a bus. So she was really messed up. She was in a coma for months. She had to have operations on her brain. And as soon as that happened, we both decided the right thing to do was to move to Scotland.
To be with her.
Just to be with her and to be with those 2, helping out wherever we could. I didn't live with my boyfriend. We lived in separate places in Scotland. And I didn't have a television, and I only had a tiny little radio. And that was a really fantastic time in my life. I think I was too young to be depressed, and I was in a different country, and I would just listen to Radio 1 every night. I remember Crazy in Love came out, and it would get played like 3 times a night. I didn't have any friends. And I know that you said once that before I left to go to England, when I would sing, you'd have to crank the volume up on the amp because I was singing through an amp at that stage. And that when I came back from England...
You were louder.
Yeah, I was heaps louder, and I think it was because I used to...
Sing along to Beyonce.
Sing along to the radio every night because I didn't have a television, didn't have any friends. So I just spent ages. I just listened to the radio and would sing every night. So it was good. That was probably the best vocal training I ever did.
Were you sending like ideas back and forth for the band still?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we definitely were, because we'd written like 7 songs or something before Patience left, and then we were excited about it. Like it sucked that she was leaving. Patience would send ideas. Like she sent a letter saying, like, I got this idea for a song 1920, and that was it. That's the chorus. That's the chorus. Or they'd be like, this is Rock Boys, and she'd written out like a tab, but it didn't make any sense to me. Like it was, like it was like in her code for how she played guitar. So like there were ideas floating around that entire time, but we didn't really work on anything until she got back.
Back in Australia, you and Alana were in a band called Clifton.
Yeah.
Was that some of your main band at the time?
Yeah. It was my main band, like, and Grates and Zombie Crime Bus dropped off. Grates was the most exciting thing I was doing. But like Clifton was my first time I'd like written songs by myself and then had a band. With the Zombie Crime Bus stuff, I didn't write any of the lyrics or anything. I was just like...
And was there a bit of crossover with the songs that you did for Clifton and the songs you were doing for the Grates?
Yeah, we'd use the same riffs. Some songs I'd just turn down my vocals and let Patience sing new stuff over the top of it.
And what happened to Clifton?
As soon as Patience got back, I think I lost interest. It just wasn't as fun as the Grates, and I didn't see the point in pursuing it. It was just way more exciting to work with Patience writing songs than it was to just like tell a bunch of people what I wanted.
Yeah.
Like there's no new ideas was coming from Clifton, whereas with Patience we could bounce things off each other.
So you were doing all the writing in Clifton?
Yeah. That was kind of the point of that's what I wanted to do with it.
Were you singing for it as well?
Yeah.
There was you, Alana, and there was a third guy in
Conan
Clifton.
Thorogood.
Oh, Conan was in that band. Oh, right, yeah.
Keyboards with the Grates too.
How did he feel when the Clifton sort of tapered off?
I don't think he really minded.
Oh, yeah. He was sort
I
of...
don't know. He never said anything, but I don't think he minded. Well, he might have, I don't know. But we were never, chasing it like a dream or anything. It was just something to do on the weekends.
And Patience, you had a band with your boyfriend called, is it Pricks Drivers or Pre-Drivers?
Pre-Divers.
Oh, Pre-Divers, that's right.
Pre-Divers. Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of music was that you were making?
Just like the Locksmiths, but not that big, obviously, because there was just 2 of us and we didn't have any other I didn't do anything except for play a snare drum, offer a harmony.
Yeah, it was like Darren Hanlon. Go-betweens. Kind of.
Yeah.
It's like kind of folky indie pop sort of stuff.
Yeah, total folky.
Super, twee-ish.
Twee to the max.
Yeah, but I think Patience took it from being too... it would have been super twee if it weren't for you. I think you because Patience played snare drum and sung backing vocals, and it was just she just smashed it. It was way more gutsy because of her.
What happened to that band?
Well, that definitely ended when we broke up. So that was easy. So that's what happened there. And it probably just ran out of time as well, because we weren't broken up when stuff started happening with the Grates. Probably just didn't have maybe as much time.
Yeah, we
to do it.
really focused on the Grates once stuff started kind of happening.
Your early songs were these short, simple, garagey, high energy tunes like Sexy Motherfucker, which was the first track on your first EP.
Yeah.
Take me through some of those early songs that were on your first EP.
I just
I think we recorded all of those before Patience went to England.
Do you reckon?
Yep.
Yeah, I totally forgot. And Accelerator too?
Yep. Yeah,
The
so
ADD
there was like
bad.
the 7 songs that we recorded
Yeah.
before Patience went to England, and then that was like I burnt 20 CDs, and like 6 months later at my birthday party, I just gave this final like 7 that I had. Like it was so hard to get rid of 20 CDs over 6 months that I like at my birthday party I just gave the 7 that I had left to everyone there.
A lot of people didn't appreciate it.
No, we were like no one understood.
No one understood. They hated it.
Like people actually like kind of like half friends were like kind of hated us. We had an attitude about it as well that we knew we were like proud of being really shit.
Yeah.
And we wore it on our sleeve and we'd talk it up like how amazing, how shitty it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, people didn't like it.
They didn't. They were in bands that sounded decent, like that took things seriously, and they practiced and they were better at singing.
And we were like, we wanted to show it, like we wanted to
rub it in
that we were shit, but we were still writing better songs.
What was influencing you at this point to make that kind of music?
John Spencer Blues Explosion still for me.
I just feel like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't come from a musical background. I didn't really listen to any music besides like Hanson when I was a teenager. And then you guys would make me mix CDs. I barely even had an opinion of what music I liked. I just think I didn't know any better.
I think that we were so restricted by our talents. Like I love music, but I'm left-handed and I play a right-handed guitar and it's always been really difficult for me. And I was like so restricted by that. Even if I was influenced by something, it just wouldn't translate because I couldn't put it through my fingers into the guitar.
You just literally made the only music you could.
I could, yeah.
I think that's what happened. I think we made the only music we could make. Like I was better at singing because I sung to the radio in England, but I was not by any means a good singer. Or I used to lose my voice all the time. I still lose my voice all the time. I'm not actually a good singer. But I just think I just felt safe and cocky.
Oh, and Weezer was a mess.
I really only learned about Weezer through you, I think. Like, I was just getting fed John's musical influences because I didn't have any influences of my own besides, like, the Reality Bites soundtrack and Hanson.
Yeah.
No, I was obsessed with, like, we were talking last night about we loved the sound of demos, like, more than any other. Like, and I was obsessed with Weezer, like, demos from, like, the Pinkerton era of Weezer that were just surfacing online around that time. And that, like, the sound of them has, like, really stuck with me.
Was that, like, the stuff that eventually came out on, like, the home recordings of
reissues? Yeah. And the deluxe Pinkerton.
One of my favourite songs from your early era is Mosquito Island.
It was just an endearing term that we'd call Macleay Island Mosquito Island because it was.
Then we had Capalaba Town as well.
Capalaba Town, yeah.
Let's
talk about walking around Capalaba.
Walk around Capalaba Town
because that's what I always used to do. That's how I'd spend every weekend.
Yeah,
walking between like Capalaba Park and Capalaba Central Shopping Centre.
I loved Mosquito Island, and I remember that that was when I was studying ceramics at TAFE. Was that before or after I left to go to England?
It was before. All those songs were
before, yeah. And I remember showing, like, I would play it to people and they'd be like, great. Paishi, good job.
Yeah, we were so proud of ourselves.
We were so proud.
But yeah, we were like, we took pride in when people hated our band.
Yeah, I did.
Like, that gave us that gave us something to really like bond over. And
yeah, that was the most pleasure.
It
was that they would all hate it. I could hear that there was like something going on there, and then because it opened up into that "Why'd you breed me?" Like it was cool. It had a progression. It went and it got to yell and jump around, and I really enjoyed singing things that were kind of felt. It was like the most weakest type of punk in a way.
It's like banal. Like it's like Just screaming about shit that doesn't matter.
And just being able to sing about mosquitoes felt more relevant to me than singing about anything else, I think.
Did you actually play any gigs before you went to the UK, or just record the EP?
Just record. Oh, I think we played like 2 songs at our friend's 18th birthday party.
Which I have no recollection of. I have a really bad memory, as it turns out. I forgot one time that we even went to Disneyland.
Patience at this gig, we only had 2 songs written, and Patience typed a set list on a typewriter, and it was just the 2 songs.
Oh man, I remember the typewriter. I remember his party, Lee's party out at his house.
Well, we only played for like 4 minutes,
and I have no recollection of going on stage in front of people and singing.
It was like on a above ground pool deck.
Yeah, there was something. And were they in the pool?
Maybe.
Oh man, it was. I have like really vague memory. I probably got wasted, deleted it from my brain.
That's an awesome idea, to have like a gig in someone's yard with an above ground pool, the audience like in the pool, and then the band up on the deck.
Yeah, it's a cool idea.
Yeah.
All right, let's
do
it.
Parties.
I think I heard in New York, we've killed a bean at this gig. Like in the mid 2000s, Sonic Youth played a gig with Yeah Yeah Yeahs at this abandoned public swimming pool.
Yeah,
it was like empty.
But they did heaps of shows there.
Yeah, they did a series. They did a series of shows there. It's called like. I don't know. Yeah, they do a series of shows there every
summer
year
now
for free.
Oh, did you go when you were in Brooklyn?
No.
We couldn't get in. We went one time, and it always. But then it rained, and then they moved it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And we didn't really live near Williamsburg when we were over there, and it was a drag for us to get out there. And we were super insulated. No, like isolated. Insular. We were super insular.
Yep.
I can't say it with my plate. Did you saw Yeah support
John Spencer.
That was
cool.
kind of, when I came back,
that was in at the arena.
I think when I sort of came, just before I came back from England, you sent me that Yeah CD. And I always thought it was I just thought it was cool that there was another, like, that she was, I always thought Karen O was pretty cool. But then I got really jaded when I got compared to her heaps.
Yeah.
It really shit me off because I was like, felt like I was just being in a band doing my own thing with John.
Well, and we really were. Like, we were just like, it sucks that
it was just like weird to be compared.
I think it's like that. I think it was the beginning of that super critical age, like internet critics, where it's like everyone, like people comparing people to other things all the time rather than judging things on their own merit.
Well, yeah, one of the things you shared with Karen O, obviously, is like your incredible stage energy, and which is the first thing you see when you go to a Grates gig. If you've never been before, the first thing you notice is that you're there on stage dancing around like an absolute maniac. Is that something you did from the very start, or did that sort of develop over time?
I thought it was something I did from the very start until we watched back some video footage that someone had taken when we played
the Tote.
The Tote, yeah. In Melbourne. And I was like, I didn't do anything. And then I was like,
all the energy, like she stood very still and all the energy was in her arms. But she was standing right in front of the microphone at the front of the stage, no dancing.
Yeah, and so I'd always imagined that I'd always danced. I just felt like it was the only protection that I had. It was the only thing I could do. I don't play an instrument. The only thing I could do was dance, and I enjoyed the music. Like, I enjoyed, it's so live, and there's a drum kit behind you that it seemed awkward not to dance. It must have been just happened so organically that I just always assumed that I'd done it. Then we saw that footage and I realised it wasn't something I'd always done. I don't know when or how it started, really, but I did used to stand still, and then I ended up jumping around, so something happened.
From the very start also, you designed all your own merch, your album art, your posters. What sort of inspired your visual art from that side of things?
I always liked doing it, and it's fun to just be in control of everything. But I remember like dropping some posters off at Rick's for a Clifton show, and all the dudes at Rick's were like, "Oh, it's so good to see like a poster that's been well designed and it's nice looking. It says something about them. It wasn't just a shitty photo with some shitty text laid over the top of it. There'd been some care, and that kind of like always stuck with me. That not everyone cares about every aspect of a band when they're playing music. Like they might just care about They might like care about rehearsing but not give a shit about how they're presented.
And that's always been something like really cohesive about your band is the aesthetic, like not just the sound, but also the visual aspect of it. Was that sort of a conscious thing? You wanted your own style, or is it just what you do, like the music?
It's a bit of both.
I definitely think maybe because that was something that, I guess I always felt like we had slightly more control with the posters and stuff because that was a way that I could really contribute. As soon as we started working with record labels and stuff, like where you see how little other people care about a design, like that have actual jobs in it and don't care. Like I still do a bunch of stuff just because I know it's the only way that it's going to get done properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To standard.
But I think it was also just fun. I enjoyed any time that we got to spend together working on the band. The more effort that we put into making posters, the more time I got to hang out with John.
Yeah, we'd spend like every single day working on the band together. My girlfriend would go to work and your boyfriend would, I don't know
what he did.
Patience would get the bus over to my house.
We
and
weren't
we'd
living together, so I don't think it mattered.
You'd like write a press release or something, and it was like heaps of fun. Like we'd stamp it with or we'd like scan pictures of like we'd scan $2 notes and $2 coins and put like $2 coins all over it. And we love doing stuff with money, like putting money on everything.
That was a real thing that early Grates thing was it always put money on stuff like
dollar signs and
that's so funny. I think that was part of like the posters, and I loved we got to make merch together. But got
to feel like we were working on something like we filled our time with all of the different aspects of a band, and rather than just rehearsing once a week.
Yeah, that probably came about because I think we both sort of enjoyed drawing. But I think we just really enjoyed hanging out. I think a big part of the band was just because we were best friends. It was just really fun to know that I could get up in the morning when I wasn't working, and because I only had a part-time job. I didn't even think I had a job for there was a period there where I didn't even work. And then go around to your house and still feel at the end of the day that I'd accomplished something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also feel like I was outside of the mainstream realm of how everyone was living their life. I was just excited to be tapping in probably to that thing that I think had always attracted me to you and Alana in the first place was your motivation, the ever-present motivation to just do something. It was really, really cool.
It was nice to have someone like share that with me as well because my girlfriend didn't understand. She didn't understand why I was why I'd spend
money on
or spend like a whole weekend making like a Flash player that played like our songs. She would get so mad at me. But it's like I just had this drive to just keep feeding the band.
Yeah, because and I think the thing that was probably helped too is there was like a really small audience and community at that stage. So if you did something, they would usually take it. And then I think
we had a message board on our website that was like
Tregbo.
Yeah. I was really that was heaps of fun.
It was so fun. And I think that also helped because we were like, we would make something or do a player and then people would play the songs on the player and we'd know. And then be like, they're listening, and then we'd do something else. And then if people liked that, it was just kind of cool, I guess, because our few fans were involved. It just made it probably motivated us more to do stuff.
How early did you have your own website with Tregbo on it?
Really early. Like we had
EP.
Probably it was 2004 or something.
And was that really important having that community to?
Well, I loved it because of the. I was a member of the Weezer message board and I didn't really post very much, but I'd spend hours just reading.
Lurking.
Yeah. And every now and again I'll post some fan art or something. I just thought it'd be cool to have that.
Yeah.
Playing gigs around town in the early 2000s, did you feel like it was a community of other bands all really supporting each other, or was it bitchy, or was it just everyone doing their own thing?
It's a little bit of both, I think.
Yeah, it was a lot of everything.
I think we had a little community, but it didn't go any further than that.
Yeah.
I think we did keep to ourselves.
Yeah, we kept to ourselves quite a bit. But at the same time, in a lot of ways, the little community had, there was definitely individuals that were really supporting, like Rachel Johnson or Nightstick or, we went on tour with the Tremors. That was kind of cool to be, sort of interact with all the dudes that were in the Tremors that had already been in a whole bunch of bands, you know, and done a lot of stuff. They definitely took our tour virginity, though. They showed us some things on that tour we'd never seen before. Yeah, and then I guess you knew Dan Condon and stuff, and the bands Dan Condon was in. But we kind of were part of it, but then sort of at the same time. It's not like we went out. We didn't try.
We didn't really try and make friends.
Yeah,
like we just like would make friends with the people that
we were working.
We really enjoyed.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And I still think it's the same then as it is now. Probably like sometimes it's hard to get me out of the house, and maybe if I just went out more, it would probably be, you know, easier. But even back then, I'd probably only, you know, I wouldn't see every band. I wasn't one of those people that was really in the scene every day of the week because I was a tight ass.
I resented heaps of it too. Like I didn't understand a lot of what other people were doing. I didn't resent it like I wished, but I just didn't want to be a part of some of the other, you know. I didn't want to get tied up in anything that would suck any of my motivation for doing our own thing.
Was that just like the way people went about things, or was it like the actual music itself?
The music sometimes, like there was a lot of good music, but there was also a lot of like stuff that I didn't get. But then there was always bands that were like careerist that we always like.
Yeah.
That we always like had a problem with. You know, like bands that were moving to Melbourne because Brisbane didn't appreciate them. Like that was like the biggest. That was like a massive sore point for me. Yeah. I hated that idea that you couldn't just stay wherever you like. You couldn't just be wherever you wanted to,
and just do what you love. And
and it'd work out or it wouldn't. But it had nothing to do with like where you were geographically.
You recorded a whole bunch of EPs in your dad's shed. Was the Grates the only band you really sort of recorded, or did you do other people's bands as well?
We recorded. Me and Alana got like a grant from the Redland Shire Council to do like a CD of like
a
Redlands
compilation
bands,
of local bands.
Yeah. So we recorded a bunch of stuff then, but like Iron On was probably the only like decent one that.
You recorded them.
Yeah.
Was that their first demo?
I think it was the first thing of theirs that ever got released.
Oh, so like the first, because I think they had a demo, then they had their first EP.
Yeah, it was before their first EP.
Oh, okay, yeah. Demo, yeah. I love that band.
Yeah.
Eventually, it seems like you can see a progression listening to the very early EPs in the songwriting from that really basic stuff into things that had a bit more structure. Did you notice that at the time?
Yeah, in some way, I think we just wrote more lyrics maybe, and I guess we just started writing, more actual, I guess, songies than like Accelerator or something like that. Because back then,
I can't remember talking or thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't really remember talking about it either.
Like Suckerfish, I remember was like that was a Clifton song that I never finished.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it was just more. I think it was just more time to like up our game. And
there's only so many times you can write a song like Mosquito Island or Accelerator or something like that, and probably just getting more hungry, I guess, for me to like, not hungry, but just like feeling like I had a bigger appetite.
Well, and there was a year in between, like we wrote we wrote those 7 songs, and then Patience went away for a year, and then I wrote like songs while she was gone,
and I listened
by
to
myself.
Radio 1.
And then when we came back, we just had different, like we were like that's when we wrote all of the songs that were more actual songs.
There were really 2 distinct periods.
Yeah.
Before and after. Would you say the turning point came when Triple J picked up Trampoline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I'd gone. I decided to go back to uni and be a primary school teacher, and then Trampoline started getting played on the radio like the first day.
Wow.
It was like around the first day of uni, and then I just quit uni after 2 days.
Yeah.
Because I was like, no, cool. Now I've got like something to actually, work towards.
Did you have any idea that it would get picked up like that?
No.
No, it was
Alana
really
convinced
cool.
us to put Trampoline first on that. Like we were going to put Spoke in the Eye first on the CD that we sent, and she was like, "No, put Trampoline."
That was a good move, Alana. Such a good move.
In 2003, Paul Patico started his own record label. He was the manager of Powderfinger at the time. He started his label Due Process. How did you guys get signed to that label?
His A&R guy, John Mullen, contacted us because of Trampoline getting played on the radio. And then we met with him a few times. We met with a few other people as well. It's a long road to how we end up getting managed by Paul. But how he ended up getting on the record labels it took months. Like, it took 6 months. We just kept meeting with John Mullen.
And they'd pay for us to do some demos, and then, or we'd do demos at home and then send them in, and they'd be like, we like this part, like, we like this song, but we don't like these 3 songs. And then you'd have to wait and write some more songs to send.
It was a long process.
It was pretty cool. We're getting emails from like all major labels and stuff, and that's when me and Patience were just spending every day working on the band at my house. So
you were really courted by like all the labels.
Well, we never got courted like properly.
Yeah,
but we got interest from like everywhere.
And this was like all from Trampoline on Triple J.
Yeah.
At some stage too, we got that ad. We got on that Just Jeans ad. That was cool.
Oh yeah.
That was sweet. We didn't get paid heaps, but we got paid enough to pay ourselves back from the money we'd sort of put in the band. And
we paid half of it, I remember, we put towards trademarking the name The Grates and trademarking the uses of the word The Grates. like it was like $2,000, but like we trademarked the use of The Grates on T-shirts and stuff.
Did that turn out to be like a really good business decision?
I don't know. Our accountant convinced us to do it.
Yeah, he was like...
He's like, you got to do this.
You got to do it.
I don't think it would have made any difference.
Me neither. But it's just... But we were like, yeah, that sounds like...
It must be something that every band has to do at some stage.
Yeah,
I remember that's where a lot of the money went.
Yeah, and we paid ourselves back like $100 that we'd put into the band.
Me and Patience were constantly just taking all of our savings and pouring it into the band, and
getting
then
merch made.
and then going on tour and then paying ourselves back at the end of tour.
Yeah,
or we'd pay ourselves back just by knowing that we'd say like on the drive back from Melbourne to Brisbane tonight, we can eat whatever we want at any service station,
and
that's our trip, and that's our prize for like putting it all in the band's paying for it.
Yep.
So things start to move kind of quickly from that point, playing a lot of shows, touring interstate, and you worked in a real studio for the first time. You recorded out at Airlock for your EP.
Yeah, that was part of the,
that was just like, so that EP had like 2 songs we recorded at home, 1 song we recorded at Airlock, and 1 song we recorded with Jonathan Burnside in Sydney.
What was that like working in like a real commercial studio for the first time?
It was fine. What I remember most about it was that it was so quiet and it was really cold. And, it was just like we'd always record it at home, which was a really suburban. And it's
kind of like does kind of suck the excitement out of it when the dudes recording you aren't as excited about your band as you are.
Yeah. They don't like they
don't care. So it's not like we went from just like, yeah, let's do this and that, and
everything was
in the shed at home, and we just like. Yeah, everything was way slower.
Way slower. You had to set up mics and...
they don't like the same guitar tones as you. Like they don't have the same aesthetic as you, and you're never going to be able to change like a 40-year-old dude's mind about something. When you're 20, 21, you have no idea what you're doing anyway.
And then I guess with Jonathan Burnside as well, he just basically told us to go home. Like, what did we do? Did he mix it?
He did everything. He just like recorded it. He just recorded us playing a couple of times. Yeah. And then told us to go home, and then the next day we were supposed to come in, and he said, don't come in. And then we went in and recorded your vocals for Suckerfish, and then and then it was really stressful for you, and then I remember you crying on the bus on the way home. Yeah. And then that was it. It wasn't a very nice experience.
It was weird. It was just like, again, because I just don't care. It's not that he didn't care, he just had a totally different... it's a weird feeling knowing that it's like, I don't know, you've been in control and you've recorded at home, and then you go into somebody... It's their space.
Yeah, and it's like their job.
Their job, and they're in charge of it. And then it's a weird relationship because it's your music, but it's their space, and it was very...
It's like something we've always struggled with.
We've always struggled with it. Every time we go and record... any album, there's always, it's like, I think it's probably the same for a lot of bands. Jonathan Burnside was just a really quiet, cool dude American. And then so we were really absent for the record, and it just blew my mind. That I was like, we did all the merch, did all the posters, did all the recording ourselves previously. We go to record a song and it's like, yeah, don't come in. Yeah, you guys should go home. Don't come in tomorrow. Come back and record these vocals. And then I probably felt like I did a really shit job of it. And I think there was like a note that you wanted me to get that I couldn't get. And then I was just like, felt like turds, and we flew back to Brisbane. And then it sounded great. Like the job he did on it was really good.
We also recorded a message with him as well that was supposed to be for the EP, but then it didn't turn out very well.
Yeah, it didn't have the same energy and all that
So we
stuff
just
that
went
you
with the
want.
demo.
You've
like
always
that.
had a bit of a thing with, like we were saying earlier, like with demos. Like sometimes you capture something on a demo that's really hard to capture again. And I think sometimes it's maybe a little part of it is to do with studios being so, they're just like...
That approach, that attitude, that
Yeah.
mercenary kind of
Yeah, and
thing.
it's like, all right, get in there and do your thing. But they
They're
don't...
obsessed with Pro Tools and grids.
Yeah.
Like you're like, I just sucks at.
You have to fight so much.
Yeah.
You recorded your EP, The Ouch, The Touch, and at this point you were signed to Due Process. So what kind of opportunities did that open up for you?
Heaps, I think. Just, although we'd been booking shows, and I think Paul just had good encouragement where he was like, did he encourage us to get a booking agent? That probably helped once we got a booking agent. So it's just a little bit of, it was just their experience that they got to pass
And he
on
was
to us.
he was encouraging us to get a manager as well, so that we didn't have all, because we were just doing it ourselves. And we tried to get a bunch of people. Like he wanted, and we all wanted someone that was like out the same age as us, that was like a friend that we could all grow together and build something together. But we just couldn't find anyone.
Yeah.
Like we just didn't have enough friends.
Yeah.
Did you get Megan Rita Hope at one point to manage?
She's a publicist.
She was a publicist.
But
Okay,
she was helping with management through
Due process.
and Secret Service. That was after Secret Service were managing us, though.
And so eventually Paul just became your manager.
Yeah, where were we when we asked? It was somewhere cool. Like was it overseas in LA? I think it was at the end of South by Southwest. So that was so he introduced us to some big ideas and was like, if you guys can get enough money together, let's go to South by Southwest.
They went halves with us.
Yeah, they were like, you get 10 grand and we'll get 10 grand from Universal and we'll figure out your schedule and we'll go to South by Southwest and try to do something cool. And then John's, did you and I have $3,000 each that we'd saved?
Yeah, it was something like that. And then my grandma.
And then your grandma gave us 10 grand. Yeah, that was really cool. John's grandma, John's brother and sister don't know that. But John's grandma, pretty much, she lent us the money. And it was a really cool experience. And that was like a big idea. Like we didn't know what South by Southwest was. They pitched us for it. And, they want us to go to New York and do all these things. And we just did it as cheaply as we could, which still was probably around 20 grand anyways. And
dollar was terrible at it.
Dollar was we went to England as well, and the dollar was an abomination. Like it was $2.50 to 50 pence.
Oh wow.
If you can imagine.
Yeah, and it was like 50 cents to the dollar in America too.
It was just terrible. But it was good. Like when we were at South by Southwest and stuff, Alana slept in Paul's closet. There was a massive walk-in wardrobe. Sorry, in Meg and Rita Hope's room. There was a massive walk-in wardrobe, so Alana slept in there. And it had a sensor light, so when you'd open the doors, the sensor light would come on. And she had this ball that she would throw around the closet that would then make the light come back on again so she could read. That was a really cute little story. But that's when we got interest from Interscope. So that was but we made flyers. Do you remember that we made flyers under Paul's encouragement?
Yeah,
and we went around and slipped them under
every door in the hotel. Yeah,
every second door, because we didn't want to. We wanted to try to give the air of choosing. We didn't want to just put it under every door. We thought if a couple of these people on that floor talked, maybe a few of them didn't. Maybe a couple of them wouldn't have got the flyer, so it made it look like it was more personal. Didn't need to bombard everyone.
Yeah.
Save a few bucks, only do every second room. Can't believe we did that still, but I love that we did it. And it just happened to be one of those things where it was Martin Kersenbaum from Interscope, and I think he liked it. He liked the band, and I think he really liked Paul. And so he was willing to sign us and then got us a deal in England through a subsidiary of Universal. It was kind of weird. It was through a cool company, but they only signed English bands, so we had to go on some offshoot of that, and we didn't end up getting looked after. It doesn't matter.
Rules.
There's so many rules. It's you can't do that. You're not English.
When you went to England, was that the tour you did with the Zootons?
Go Team
that was a bit
first,
later, yeah.
wasn't it?
Go Team was first. The American tour with the Go Team, was that when you had a particularly eccentric tour manager? with you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was when we had Clint Wright, Cliff, who would that was a crazy tour.
Yeah, that was in England. He was an English guy.
But it was in America.
It was in America where it was
freaking.
like we were like we might die.
We could die, man.
Conan pulled me aside and was like, I don't mean to scare you, but I feel like I'm really worried that we're going to die at the hands of Cliff on this tour.
I was serious. We were in like Wisconsin. I don't know. We were in some place in the middle. It was like Oklahoma in the middle of nowhere, and yeah,
that was the weirdest tour too because it was just after we finished recording our first album, but we decided to get it mixed like by someone else, so we had to wait around in America for a month before we could get into the studio. So we're in tour for a month, and me and Patience had broken up like during making the first record.
Yeah, it started going out secretly and then broken up publicly.
So then, like we were on tour, like just freshly broken up for a month in America with this tour manager that we were pretty certain was like out to get us.
And he was destroying our shit. He was sabotaging our gear.
Why was he doing that?
It was just he must have been really stressed, I think. He was like tour managing, and it's very rare to find somebody who will tour manage and do sound and not flip out. It's too much responsibility and work generally for the one person, and sort of drive and do all those things. Every time we've had a tour manager, sound engineer, they've always ended up freaking out. It's just too much work. But a lot of the time you don't have the budget to have two separate human beings. It means getting another bedroom or getting another bed. You just can't afford it. We knew he was destroying stuff.
Yeah.
But then there was that time where we found his pliers and we matched up the ply marks that were on like this road case of ours that had been destroyed. We were like, there's ply marks on this road case. I wonder if it matches his pliers. We borrowed his pliers and it matched.
Because he brought over this case going, ooh, look what happened to this.
It's indestructible. It's indestructible.
It's broken. And I'm like, it's weird that it's like got ply marks where it's broken. But yeah, he was a weird dude. He was spiraling out of control.
I think he was stressed.
And then someone a couple of years later sent me an article saying like this band. He was tour managing this band. They got in trouble for destroying a hotel room, and I think he was part of it.
Yeah.
He ripped out a shower head. Conan said like he ripped a shower head off once, and then was like, "Oh, have you seen that the shower's broken?" And Conan was like, "I just had a shower like 30 minutes ago, and it was fine."
He would just break stuff and then blame someone else.
He just like blame the universe.
No, he would just say, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
Like one time there was a porno on the front, just open on the front of our car, and we were touring with the Go team. And you know who the support act was? Two 12-year-old girls called Smoosh. And we were just like, what the fuck? Like, how does that happen? Ooh,
he'd be like, "Oh, look what popped up on my monitor," and it'd be like a fully loaded. It was a fully loaded porn movie that definitely had been downloaded because there was no streaming was not that good then.
Yeah,
we were just like,
and pop-ups are never take up the full screen and show a full movie.
We started being really like, we got to get off tour with this guy. We're just some kids from Brisbane. I grew up on an island.
Yeah. He was used to a different type of touring.
So that was during that time, but that was awesome too with the Go team. That was really, really cool. We toured England, Australia, and America with them. And they were really nice.
And so you recorded your album before that tour?
After the English tour and before the American tour.
So you recorded that in Chicago with Brian Deck.
Yep.
And you've recorded all your albums in America.
Yeah.
Why is it that you always get out of town to do that?
It's really good to get out of town when you're recording, and it's really awesome when you're on the other side of the Earth too, because the time zone's so fucked up. The time zone's so bad that you don't have to. You're sort of on your own.
Yeah, it's a real bubble.
Yeah, you're in it. You can really just concentrate. You don't have any if you've got a message from your flatmate that's like, "Hey, that bill came in. You need cash. You got to give me money." They can't disturb you. You just wake up, maybe you get an email in a couple of days' time because you haven't been checking them or whatever, and because you don't have internet when you're over there. It's just a nice way to distance yourself from all of the things that you have to do when you're living at home in Brisbane. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. Like, I remember over there, our cat died, and my mum was just like, it was just too much effort getting onto me, so I didn't even get disturbed with our cat dying until I came back. You know, it was just sort of like you just get to go, you just get to be over there and not be interrupted. And it's also kind of good because if you're getting in blow-ups with anyone over what they reckon they should do with the song, at the end of the day, you kind of get to do whatever you want because they're still in Australia. It's sort of like they keep telling you to change it, but if you don't you know.
I think just working with Brian Deck, that first album kind of made us want to go back to America. Like, I think he was really encouraged. Like, he was the first time we'd worked with someone in the studio that really cared.
And he really cared
about us.
It's like, I tweet with his wife now. Like, he introduced us to his family, and we just, like...
Stayed at his house when we come.
Yeah. He was just really nurturing soul, you know. And we also really loved Modest Mouse as well, and I understood why that would work so well between him and, like... I could imagine somebody that would work with... Is it Isaac Brock? Yeah. Somebody would need to be... I think you'd need to be a fairly... nurturing sort of soul, totally.
Yeah.
And I think, he was just out to do the best with you that he could, and he had good ideas, and he was dedicated, and he's just an excellent dude.
And the sound on your album, the arrangements were a fair bit different to the sort of lo-fi minimalist stuff that you'd done up to that point.
Yeah.
Was that, so adding all the extra guitar parts and the keys, was that something you'd always had in mind for the band, or was that something that just emerged at the time?
I think it's something we had in mind, but he was like, he just wanted to do whatever we wanted. Like, he wanted to make it as easy as it was to, like, fulfill any idea we had. So it was really easy.
It was just it's just kind of cool. I think that thing happened. We were over there and we're like, we're not going to spend all this money to do something that we could do at home. We had so many resources at our disposal. It felt like a shame to not get a fiddle player in, because he knew this fiddle player that was awesome. Like, let's get him on Suckerfish. And there was these dudes that had...
Yeah, it was a dude from Iron and Wine's band.
It was so cool.
And he was just amazing.
He was so cool. Oh, there was this guy that did a brass arrangement for 1920, and we did a few things with him because it was just so cool. Just for him to know these people that were really good, and such is the American way.
We don't even know anyone we didn't know anyone in Brisbane. Like, we didn't have any friends that we could call on to, like, musically that even understood what we were doing or anything. And it was just like, over there, it was like a team of dudes at his disposal.
It was rad.
And everyone was really excited and really good at their jobs,
but I feel like
understood.
Sometimes that's like the Yankee way. Like, there's so many musicians over there that just never get anywhere, that just are awesome at their craft, and they really do just sit on their verandas and play fiddle. And they're in a band, and if that band got successful, that's great. But if it didn't,
then they'd just be out there.
They're just out there
age
still.
80 playing the fiddle.
Totally. They're just so, I don't know, and I think these are the dudes that Brian Deck knew. Like, that was definitely that dude who was in Iron and Wine, and that was the dude who did brass. So they really just lived for music. Like, they don't have any healthcare. They don't have anything to fall back on. They really just walk that line. It felt like a shame to go over there and make all that effort and to not do something bigger than we could do. And I think that was it.
And just even knowing that it was like a departure from what we were, like, what things sounded like, was cool too.
Yeah.
We loved like just fucking with stuff. Yeah. We loved trying, like, new things just because.
And it was around that time, the first album, that you two first actually started going out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
while we were recording. No, just before it. It was on that first Go Team tour we started going out secretly.
Before it, and then broke up just after it.
Yeah, we broke up while we were in the mixing phase, was it, of recording?
Oh, it was just before, just after we recorded the album.
Right, yeah. Cool.
And then you went on tour for the rest of the American tour. Yeah. What were the relationships in the band like at that point, with on tour, that sort of stress, with a tour manager who might kill you? You'd just broken up. Was that? We were
still friends. We still did a really good job. We weren't bitchy or mean. I think Alana was really pissed off. Makes sense. I think she was really shitty at us for getting together, and then really shitty at us for breaking up. Like, because
it was just like causing extra drama. Even though we were doing our best to not make it into a drama, because we both really.
We just knew the band was bigger than it was. Like, we might be having these problems, but hell, we've got an album, and this is really cool. Sometimes it was like, obviously you'd have your moments where it was hard, personally, but we didn't take it on stage. We barely had it in the van. Yeah. Like, I think Alana and I had more blow-ups than you and I did when we were broken up. Yeah, and just because it made sense, I think she was just super shitty. Because I think she didn't want us to get together because she thought that we'd break up and spoil the band. And then next thing you know, we were together and then broken up, and it was like, these are all my nightmares happening at once. Some pretty funny things happened though while we were broken up. Like we both would go to tarot readers separately, and I went I bought like this book that my tarot reader told me to get. Like I was at Venice Beach. It was like an awesome cliche that not everyone gets to have, and I was so happy that I got to have that moment where I went to Venice Beach and it was all people in bikinis, and then there's all fortune tellers everywhere, and then I found one that just looked like a grandma in a vest, and then she was like, this man, he's got 1 foot in the sand and 1 foot in the water, you'll never get anything out of him. And then she was like, you got to go to Small World Books, get this book, ask them for it, they've got it. And then I went and bought a book and I would read it I read it on the bus trying to figure out ways to whinge on back. And then as a result, we were in Seattle and I made my friend buy flowers for me on her credit card and deliver it to my room, totally fake, pretending that I'd gotten this.
Trying to make John jealous.
Yeah, man. I made up this fake dude that I met in LA that rides a motorbike.
Did it work?
Totally didn't work, but you paced the hallway a fair bit. I think it just confused you.
Yeah, I was just like, like I'd broken up with my other girlfriend and then Patience was a rebound, and then it was all too much for me for like a couple of months. I was in a world of pain. Had 2 breakups going on at the same time in my mind.
So that was a fun thing to do. I really enjoyed it. It was my favourite story of all time. And I was like, I sent myself flowers. $77 worth of flowers.
At what point did you get back together for good?
It was only like a month after that, I think.
I thought it was a couple months. It was definitely a couple months. I thought it might have been 3.
Yeah.
I know it was like December 2nd or something, I think.
Yeah, it would have been 3 months.
Yeah. John just rang me up and said, I'm coming around. And then I was like, it's on. We get back together. I think, though, you've always felt like, I think at that time I was becoming, Ben Lee was on tour in Australia, and then Ben Lee and I were becoming friends. Then we were talking a lot and hanging out a lot, and then I think it just made
struck the fear
of having another male around.
He's had a confidence that I didn't have.
Yeah, and I think you also were like, I don't need no Yoko Ono.
Yeah.
I didn't need somebody else coming in and giving advice on the band. You were like, had 2 things to protect.
Yeah.
You were like, I got to protect my girl and I got to protect my band. We don't need any more musical opinions.
And Ben Lee did give you a lot of advice in those days, didn't he? He was sort of your spirit animal.
He was totally a spirit animal. He's just like an old school performer. I don't love everything that Ben writes, but as far as he goes as being a human being, a lot of people, that's probably the biggest question that I reckon I get asked by anyone who, you start talking to it at the shop or whatever. People are always like, so is Ben Lee a dick? Like, is he a wanker? People are always asking me, and he's not.
He seems like a really, really spiritual guy. Like, in some ways, like a total space cadet. But he seems like a really nice,
he's really fascinating to talk to.
Yeah.
And he seems like fascinated in everything that you're talking about as well. It's I always enjoy talking to him. I remember like when we first met, he'd talk about like he was super into feminism and stuff, but that kind of struck a chord with me. I remember us being like we'd be on home bake or something and we'd be the only band with girls on the entire stage for the entire day. Yeah, I always like wanted to pursue that more like feminine with guts though.
What did you think of his cover of Rock Boys?
It was great. It was really sweet of him. Yeah, he loved it. That was really cool and unexpected.
Why was it important to you to keep your relationship secret?
For me, I didn't want it to be like a focal point of our band.
Like a selling point?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't want to get it.
I didn't want to have to talk about it.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to...
Like the things that end up in press releases or something just stick around forever. You start get asked the same questions over and over. Like it would just become a thing that you have to talk about. And like we were trying to work it out for ourselves because it was like we were in a weird situation working together on a band and trying to like have a relationship at the same time with another person that we were just as tight with.
Like married to another person.
You would have had like these 2 types of relationships going on at the same time with the same person. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a lot. And it also felt, I don't know what, but I always kind of liked the idea that we were independent people to the public. I like the idea that we had a pure friendship, but that when we worked on the band, it was like we really cared. And I didn't want people to think it was anything to do with like love or sex or any of that stuff. Like I just wanted it to be like, and the Grates was always so much like with Alana that I didn't ever want it to get messy I didn't want it to seem like, oh, those guys are going out and Alana's in the band. I just wanted it to be us three in the band, like equal people, not doing stuff, and not to do with the fact that we were going out. And I guess I was probably just attached to the way we were formed. And maybe it was just attached to that because we'd broken up once and kept it a secret. It just probably was just easier to keep it a secret, and probably good for our headspaces too, because when we did work on the band,
it was like separate.
Yeah, it was good to sort of have it not be so. We're already we've already got 3 personality types. It's good. We tried to keep our relationship out of it.
So you never found it hard to really keep it a secret?
I don't think so.
No, I found like times where
it'd be hard if you got grilled about
grilled
about it and you had to lie. Yeah.
I decided that I would always try to get around it without lying, but there's definitely a few times where I was like, you know what? No, I'm totally entitled to lie about this, and I had to really talk myself into being cool to lie about it. Where I was like, nah, actually, if I don't actually want to talk about it, I don't have to. Just be comfortable in saying no, we're not going out. You're not doing anything wrong. Like, what's wrong and what's right about that?
Yeah, but it's your own business.
Exactly.
Really.
So it was definitely a couple of times where it was a little bit, my heart would race getting grilled about it. And I'd feel like I was doing something wrong. But yeah.
April 2006, your first album came out and it sold 50,000 copies in Australia. Did you really get a sense of the kind of success you were having at the time doing all that touring, or were you just too caught up in it to really notice that you were getting big?
Notice like more, we'd go to America and England and then back to Australia. It was like that's how we toured for like a year. So we'd be playing small shows, supports in America, and and they were getting bigger over time. But then we'd always come back to Australia and it'd be like bigger than it was the last time.
You play like Big Day Out and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you kind of noticed when we were in the country, but then we'd just be busting our balls like. We'd stay in nice hotels in Australia and then, like not nice, but like hotels. We'd
stay in a hotel.
Yeah, but in America, then we'd just like sleep in an RV. So it was... Do
you think that helped keep you grounded, having to start from scratch in America, but at the same time having a certain amount of success in Australia?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably.
And it's nice to just have that, to realise that, things happen in different areas at different paces, and some things work some places and some things don't, and it's good to know that.
I do think that we would always have remained grounded, though.
Oh, totally.
I think that's kind of.
But I enjoy it. I'm glad we did it that way, and
I like the rough as well as the smooth. It's just really cool when you're sleeping on a floor or when you're doing it really tough, because you just come to realize after a while, like. Some people just can't do that. Like, they cannot do that. And I've always felt like it's a really cool resource to be able to have as a human being. And it's not just with girlfriends of mine that maybe want to wear fake nails or have these, like, financial ties to, like, a certain class of...
A lifestyle. A certain standard of living.
That they've got. It's like a really... Dude friends of ours as well that had to drive down. They drove down to Sydney once for a gig of ours down there, and they just had blow-ups the whole time. They're like, I can't believe you guys did this for like a year. This like sucks. Like, they hate it. Every time we've had to go and we sleep on floors or we do all that stuff, it just made it so much cooler when we came back to Australia and then did something really good, because it made me feel
like you're still earning it.
I'm still earning it, and it wasn't handed out, and it did make me feel grounded. You'd see other Australian bands that were in the States, like Wolfmother or somebody, and they had a car hired each, and they each had their own hotel rooms and stuff, and it was kick-ass because they were getting successful. I don't know if it's just a Brisbane thing. Brisbane people are really suburban in some ways, and we're like
rougher. We're tight asses.
Tight asses.
Like we can't. Like, we're really good at not spending heaps of money on.
Yeah.
We can make stuff work on budgets, and I think we took a lot of pride in that. Like, even like trolleys at airports, we still do trolley runs like every single, like we've probably only paid for a trolley 4 or 5 times and probably saved $3,000 just picking up, going out to the car park and picking up a trolley. It's like our favorite game.
Because they're like $5 each. You've got gear. You need
3 like either side of an airport.
Yeah. That's like $30 every time you take a flight. And I do love being a tight ass, because I just like using money in areas where it needs to be. Like
it'd be called tight ass touring.
Yeah, we call it tight ass touring.
Tour manager.
Yeah. And it's allowed us to do things, I think, like the shop. Like if we hadn't have been so frugal over the years, we wouldn't have probably been able to do what we've done now.
Australia is notorious for having a bit of a tall poppy syndrome when it comes to recognising people who become successful, especially in the arts. After the first album came out and you were getting played on the radio and you were selling albums, did you feel any sort of backlash, particularly from like the Brisbane scene that you'd come up with?
We were always feeling backlash.
I always think we always felt a little bit of backlash, and it didn't really change. And it purely came from that standpoint, I think, just because we were probably shitter technically than a lot of the other our contemporaries, and I think it just frustrated a lot of people that we were worse than them in a lot of ways, but we were getting managed by Powderfinger's management. And I totally understand that. I was always really proud of that fact internally, but I'd never rub it in people's faces. Like, we've never been rude to people, or, I think there was a little bit of backlash, but I don't think it really mattered, and it hadn't really changed. It was just really cool that we were getting.
But like, and you never cared because the people that did like your band were like, especially on that first album, like they were the nicest. People. Like we had the nicest, like best fans. Like that people would come to our shows and be on our message board and send MySpace messages and whatnot.
And
they were always like,
presents.
It was always like the nicest stuff. That
and like
teenagers
that would sneak into the shows, like that I still talk to now. Kids that would be desperate and get fake IDs and then go to like every Victorian show we had. And
it's like we ended up making friends with those people rather than people like peers.
It's true.
Like the friends we made were people that just like gravitated towards it.
Especially that first album, we're still friends with every single one of those like first dedicated fans.
It's like they were on the message board.
Yeah.
Is it true that the first album was banned from Kmart because it had a really sort of childlike illustration, a colourful album art, but then there were swear words inside?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like one of my greatest achievements is the warning sticker is like a handwritten cloud with a
Did you actually do your own warning sticker?
Yeah, and I think it's like the only time that's ever, like, it snuck past. It's not, because we tried to do it again and they were like, you can't do it. And I think it's the only time it's ever been done.
And then they started printing. The CD now comes with a normal warning sticker, but that was so
it was
cool.
like they let us cut it into the shape of a cloud and a lightning bolt, like it was in an actual shape, and it
was so
like
rad.
Design got so much like more tight ass after that with
because there was like no more
because there's no more money in CDs, but it was like they let us do everything with that. We had fluoro inks, like an extra layer of ink on the cover, and like a layer of a matte plastic finish on it and stuff like.
Well, apart from the die cut maybe, but a lot of the newest ones, I don't know if they've got the same matte ink and shit, do they? That they've still got like.
They changed it. In America, that was the first thing they did. Is like
they were just like
we're
you're not doing this shit. That was really cool in Australia though that we snuck that lightning bolt cloud thing across, because we were just like, warning stickers are so ugly. Can't we just do one that's cuter?
Yeah, they told me the only rule was that it had to be black and white.
Yeah,
but like that wasn't.
It was the best. That was cute. That was fun.
So you toured Gravity Won't Get You High for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Total. Was that hard? Did you really love being on the road all that time? Did you get homesick?
Didn't really get homesick, but like we had the last tour we did in England was really shit and we hated it, and then we were supposed to do another tour in England. Like we came back to Australia and we were supposed to do another tour in England, and we pulled the plug on it.
We'd never I couldn't even.
It was the first time we had to be like put our foot down,
and we didn't. And I never even foresaw that we were going to do that. And we'd always sort of, both of us, I think, had that drive that we were never going to take the easy road. But after that tour in England, we were like, we can't do it. I think I had like my first nervous breakdown at the end of that tour. We toured. It was a tour with the Young Knives that sort of toured in Australia. They sort of had a bit of presence in Australia for a while. It was just us and Dan Condon in their van with them and their sound guys and their sound engineer and their roadie, and so it was like 14 dudes and 2 chicks sort of thing
in one van.
In one big. It was like a big bus. Sorry,
like a big bus. Yeah.
And it wasn't working. They were
like crusty old English road dudes of the road.
They treated us like they treated us like shit, like kind of like second class citizens.
And we didn't have a tour manager or anyone to like stand up for us.
We were sort of doing it.
So we were just tired, and they were just bossing us around. And
at the end of like sort of 2 years of touring, and all of our gear got stolen. Like our band room got broken into, so they stole our computers and phones and all that stuff and clothes, and it was just a drag because we were still on this bus with these dudes, and everyone would smoke in the bus, and they were just old crusty rat pigs, and they just didn't give a shit about us. So it was just sort of that weird feeling.
We were all getting so over it.
We were so
Dan and
done.
me were just saying, "Tour is dead. Tour is dead."
They kind of killed it for us, and then they would. It was like weird, like they would think we were drinking all their rider, and I wasn't even drinking at this stage, and just any reason that they could sort of give us shit for. And the Young Knives were barely even on the bus. One of them had a wife, one of them had a girlfriend, they were partying, they would sleep in hotels, but it was just us on this tour with these old dudes that didn't want us there. And then we went to America. All of my stuff got left on the Young Knives bus, like what I'd had left. And that's when I think I had like I had a fit of like, I was so upset, and it's really embarrassing now, but I like slammed my hand on the ground and I cried. And I gave myself blood blisters in my eyeballs.
Oh. And bruises all
over my hand. And I was just like, I just had it. I just totally had it. It's not really meant to be a sob story. It's just one of those things that happened, I guess. I was just really tired, and we came back and we were like, can't do it. Not going back. We need a break now.
So you came back to Australia and you did have a break.
Yeah, we moved into a single bed underneath my parents' house.
Yeah.
When did you start writing for the second album?
Took months because I was just being a dragger and I just had a lot of anxiety.
It's like sucks about going on tour like that, where it does like take the wind out of any writing. Like it was probably 2 years between writing songs for the first album and the second album at least.
And I think that's the only downside about doing really cheap touring in America and England, is that when you're touring that hard and sleeping on floors and being super tight asses, there isn't an opportunity to write because you're all in the same bedroom and you're an event. Like it's just like space is so limited that it's not, you don't get to sit behind a drum kit so we didn't. That was the one thing I think we lost of tight ass touring, was the opportunity to write. Whereas if you'd maybe had a couple extra hotel rooms,
and we
like
we toured non-stop for
we did.
We actually toured non-stop for like a year and a half or 2 years or something.
Yeah.
We didn't.
Yeah, you'd come back and maybe have 5 days and then just start again. If you're lucky, like we got 5 days, which was awesome. But yeah, it really took the wind out of our sails of writing. And I just remember, I think I was just very anxious and I was suffering a lot of pressure and feeling a lot of like somehow I'd faked it. And how am I going to fake it a second time? Like, how am I going to do it 2 times in a row? And it was and I think Alana was really probably feeling the exact same way as me. And we just cried a lot. Alana and I cried a lot, and we fought a lot, and we just spent every day trying to, like when we got into writing, we tried to write a lot.
And eventually you got a bunch of songs together,
yep.
But at some point you took a look at them all and threw them all out except for Carve Your Name and Oh Yeah? Is that right?
Yeah.
So what was wrong with the rest of the songs that you had?
They weren't as good.
Yeah, I don't know. They just kind of were probably directionless.
Yeah.
And no one else really gravitated to it. Like, we just send them off to the record label when we record a bunch of demos and no one else really liked it. And that always makes you not like it.
It does.
Even if, like, 2 dudes tell you that, tell you that they don't love it, you're like, you don't want to ever see it again.
So how did you turn it around with the songwriting?
We just kept trying. And then something clicked, I think, with Carve Your Name and like we were like, oh, these are good. Like I like the sound of these. They're like, especially I think with Carve Your Name, it kind of had like this stoner, just like this slight stoner suburban vibe to it. That
everything on the album's way faster than how we wrote it.
Yeah, so that made it less stoner by the time it came out. But it just sort of gave us, like, all of a sudden we were like, oh, I like that guitar tone. Let's just follow that. I like these lyrics. Let's go.
And once you kind of hit a stride, like for us, once we hit like a stride with writing, we just end up smashing out a bunch really quickly, and it's usually either it's usually like if we do it all really quickly and we're excited about it, it's usually good.
Yeah.
Like it's
But
sort of in the
you
same
can struggle
vein.
for 6 months and not have anything good. Right? It sucks.
It's just the way it is. Yeah, you just don't have any gas, and then hopefully you just keep lighting matches. Occasionally it ignites, and you're like, yes.
So you recorded the second album in Connecticut with Peter Grates.
Yeah.
Was that experience as good as recording the first album?
Yeah, it was different, but it was, again, really cool because he had a different approach to things. But the cool thing about it was that we got to live in his house and he had a studio upstairs, and there was such a routine to recording with Peter. In the morning, I would exercise and have coffee and then sing vocals like straight away, which was a revelation because vocalists are always like, yeah, you get drunk, you drink whiskey and you do it the last thing. And I always found that I would be so tired. Starting my vocals at 10 p.m. at night was never good for me. But it was cool because we all just did it in his house. It was rad. I could just
We've always
get up.
been like a day band as
We're a
well.
day band.
We
Yeah.
always.
And he sort of like lived there with his wife, and they had like a whole different part of the house, and it was just cool. It was like the States is just kind of rad. It's so different. He lived near a jail, and it was a really gritty area of Bridgeport, Connecticut that he lived at. It was not the fancy area of Connecticut, and we just had a routine, and he was right by a graveyard, and we'd walk through the graveyard every day to get to the stop and go, and we made food together, and that was just really fun having that living experience. Sometimes it would
It's like a communal kind of thing, like
Yeah.
the engineer and him and the band, and sometimes his wife would all eat dinner at the same time.
He just had this art project going on upstairs where you're making an album. Even though Peter wasn't around, like sometimes he would get shitty because Peter wasn't around, but he had like his engineer. But at the same time, I think that's what kept Peter from being so jaded, was that he'd set up a system where he didn't have to be there, and he still kind of had a life where he would go and do hockey, and he would sort of do things which sometimes frustrated us because he wasn't around. But I think
It probably gave him a clarity as well when he did
Yeah.
get back in.
yeah, and he just wasn't jaded. You know, he honestly just like would get excited by things, and he's I think his best work is mixing. Peter's he mixes really, really well.
Recording the second album, what were the relationships like in the band at this time? Were you all in a good place together?
I don't think we were ever in a good.
Yeah.
I don't think we were ever in a good place together.
Yeah, I don't think we had really ever, like, there was always struggles from the start of being in the band, and that's just like you just come to accept it.
There were some profile pieces about you, like from really early on, around the time of the first album, one in particular, there was like a big story. I think it was in the Courier Mail's
Yeah.
weekend
Is this
thing.
the one where it was like John's an alcoholic?
Yeah, pretty much.
That one.
And yeah, there are a few pieces that sort of depict a band that is constantly fighting with each other, and there's
Yeah.
all these dramas going on, lots of tantrums and all that sort of thing. Was that something that happened like throughout the whole life of the band, but was just part of your process? Or was it really a negative thing, or was it just how you guys were with each other?
Probably a bit of both, because I think you get...
It was definitely
used
how
to
we
it.
were with each other,
Yeah.
but it was draining.
Draining.
It was really
yeah.
draining.
Definitely draining, but definitely there's like, you build up a tolerance at some point where it's not, where it is just, I guess you've done it so much, it is the way you work together, but there's a certain point again where it just gets really hard and tired. We started sleeping in separate rooms when we were in Bridgeport, and that was just, I think that probably just came from the fact that we'd been sleeping in a single bed at your parents' house and stuff, and then we relished in the opportunity to actually have separate rooms, and it was that was kind of cool because we had to work together every day. But that wasn't really a source of negativity.
No.
Like maybe there's moments, like you're a human being, like I think there was moments where you might feel like this is weird or whatever, but it wasn't really a big deal. There's definitely still all that shit, like same old shit of fighting and stuff, but it was like, I think at the end of the day, we still had a good experience and still worked crazy hard on the album the way that we would at any time.
So on the second album, it seemed like there were a couple of songs that were a bit more sophisticated in the songwriting and also going to sort of darker places, maybe songs like Storms and Fevers, even Two Kinds of Right to an extent. Was that something you noticed, or did it feel like at the time you were just making the music you'd always made?
Definitely felt different. I don't think it felt I don't know if it ever felt dark. Like,
for
for some reason, the second album seems like way poppier to me than the first album.
Yeah. I've always felt like the second album was loose.
Like directionless. I think.
Directionless. Like I even felt like even though we got Oh Yeah and Carve Your Name and stuff, I always felt like we still just weren't able to completely bring it together.
It's a bit top heavy. It has like like the first half has all the singles on it, and then at the end it's sort of
you're just encouraged to do that.
Yeah, it works. You are encouraged to do that, and it works. It kind of works all right on a record. It sort of fits perfectly with the A side and the B side of that record. Like I think Storms and Fevers. What's the first song on the B side? Is it Storms and Fevers?
Yeah.
It's like it really to me when it was on the record, we felt like here's side A. All right, now here's side B. Like it was really split. But, when it's on a CD, of course, which is the main way that music's sold in a big clump like that, it doesn't have that same feeling. And you are always encouraged to do that by record labels if you've got heavier shit they want at the end of the record. And I think we were talked into it sort of because of how well it fit having an A side and a B side. It was like, well, that fits like that. Oh, fuck, maybe we'll just do it.
Were you happy with how it turned out compared to the first album?
I've never compared them.
Yeah.
I don't really.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. Like I don't even listen. I haven't listened to either of them for a long time.
Yeah, it's not something that I definitely don't ever
listen to them like 600 times while we're making it, and then I never want to hear it again.
Yeah, you listen to it so much, and then you play it live like 1,000 times. Just like I don't ever turn it on. I know that I've gone back and listened for vocal references, but that apart from just needing a vocal reference, I don't listen to it. Like it's not a thing at all. You just fill up on it and you just got to move on.
So after the second album, you toured for a long time as well in support of that. Was that like another 2 years or
no,
not as long?
That long?
Yeah, it was shorter. We didn't go to England.
Yeah, we've never been back to England since.
No.
After the crusty guys in the van.
Yeah, it was like it spoiled it. And also we lost our record label too.
Yeah, we lost our American label and our English label on the second album. So
did it not perform as well, or?
They didn't. It didn't. The first album didn't perform.
Okay,
they dropped us like 2 weeks into the first album, I think.
Yeah. So it was rad that they like supported. It was weird. They supported us financially, and then the album was out 2 weeks, and we just dropped. And I was like, wow, we did heaps of touring before the album came out, so it was sort of fun.
And you've always toured a lot in America, like even after you got dropped, I guess. Has that sort of been a conscious effort to just crack America, or is it just a money-making thing, or do you just like it over there?
Don't make any money.
I think it's
love
more
it.
I think it's more just we really like America. So it's an awesome country. It's an amazing country to tour because it's so expansive, but there's like so many little pockets where different things are happening. It's not like Australia where it's like 12-hour drive to the next place.
Yeah, it's like a few hours drive and then it's, you're somewhere else, which is what was sort of cool about England too. It's not like massive trips between places. It's just like pioneer country. It's just full of the most interesting human beings. They're so patriotic and so locally patriotic. This is an interesting thing. Before we toured England and America, there was this real anti-America flavour in Australia, in the early 2000s.
Around the time of the Iraq War and everything.
Everyone hated the States. Even me, when I went, I was like, I'm going to England because England's like our cool, mother country and it's such a great place. And England has the high streets in England are all chain department stores. No matter where you are, you're in a little town and it's all like Tesco's, Sainsbury, this shoe company, that shoe company, this blah, blah, blah. And there's always like a fish and chip shop or something. Like I felt like it was really predictable. And England was the first country we toured before. So we went to England, then we went to America and I had my mind blown and every preconceived notion I had of America was broken. That first tour we did, because I was like, all you hear about is Walmarts and Best Buys and all these big chain stores. But sort of when I compared it to England,
yeah, when you go to a small town in America, it's not like the Walmart's way out of town. Like they do it in a shitty suburb. They do all the big things way out of the actual little town, and then the town's like super super quaint and have like a lot of personality.
Yeah, and there's so much independence over there, and
it's more like traveling through a number of different countries than
totally.
one. Yeah,
absolutely. And I thought that was really interesting. That I was like, and the enemy was had such a chip on its shoulder, and everyone was reading the enemy in Australia, in the sort of, mid 2000s and stuff, and we were all looking to England. And I always felt like I was like, we're paying so much attention to England, and it was sort of cool. I know that, but then like Strokes and Yeah Yeah Yeahs and Interpol and stuff like that came out of America, and they got huge in England. Everyone said they saved rock and roll and blah, 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 blah. But it was just rad when I went to the States, and I was like, there's no, like, the high street in these towns that we were in America was still a high street. Like, it was
There
still
were
just
diners that had been the same for like 100 years.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
still like ma and pa places in these, like, on the main road. And I was like, this is cool. This is really...
And dive bars, like,
Dive bars.
like and dive clubs and places. Like, we went to this place in Kansas where it was like on the railway tracks, and there was like the toilets were just fucked. Like, there was like shit coming out of the toilets.
Yeah.
Like, and it was just nasty. Like, it's the type of stuff you never see in Australia because they were so overregulated. But it was like cool seeing like like gritty stuff.
Yeah, you really don't see that in Australia, like the sort of place where you walk into a bar and there's like a dude drinking there at 10 a.m. in the morning and he'll be there all day.
Or like a homeless dude like sucking the hand of the bar waitress.
The bartender.
Like we saw some, like, it's just awesome seeing just crazy stuff.
Just unhinged and just not caring, just sort of like totally original and not caring and being off the grid and just weird.
And ghost towns and stuff too.
Yeah,
and
scary shit.
It's just...
And people that live in these ghost towns, like, there's a ghost town that's got 4 people living in it. Like, it's got 4 houses and it's scary. On the way to Roswell one day, we stopped off at a ghost town. I really needed to pee. And I was like, just pull over. And everyone in the car refused to pull over on the side of the road. I just wanted to pee so bad. So we ended up going to this ghost town. We went to the service station in the ghost town. It was the scariest experience out of my life. Was it called Event Horizon? Or what was that movie where they had to shoot like explosives into the sun?
Was that a Danny Boyle movie?
Yeah.
The Solar
Solace or something? So anyways, do you remember there's a bad character in that's just been living up in a spaceship and he's been burnt by the sun. This dude that told me I could go to the toilet looked like that. And all you could hear was the tinkling, like the cracking of the flag, the metal clasp on it hitting the metal pole of the American flag that was hoisted up above the place.
Like a Western before there's going to be a gunfight.
And this dude was the freakiest, scariest dude ever. And I went to the toilet in his thing and was just like, but he looked not human to me. It scared the shit out of me. I had nightmares. One, that Danny Boyle movie gave me nightmares anyways because I don't really do well with sci-fis. Then I meet the dude in real life and it was totally freaky. But it's just a really fascinating place. And
Sunshine, I think the movie is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of room. I think what I like about the States is there's just a lot of room for everybody. There's like ultra Christians, ultra everything. And if you are part of like a subculture, there's going to be a home for you because there's the population so massive. Like, if you think about like the people that listen to 4ZZZ, like what percentage of Brisbane's that? It's probably like 0.2% of Brisbane.
Yeah.
And the population in Brisbane's like 500,000 people. 0.2% of 500,000 people is really small still. But if you were living in Chicago and 0.2% of Chicago was like listening to 4ZZZ, that's like a huge base of people. That's like I think because America's so populated, it's every little niche is catered for.
Yeah, it's so much more multicultural than Australia.
But I love being inspired over there. And I think, well, that's why we opened Southside too, was just you come back to Brisbane and I felt like, Queensland's like the Texas of Australia. And I want to make it a little bit more like Austin. Austin's like the blue state in a big red state.
The blue city in the red state.
Yeah, so it was like we came back to Brisbane and I was like, we can do something kooky.
Was there a real pressure ever from your management to sort of try and crack America?
No,
but
it was more just like...
But Paul wanted to because Paul's always loved, Paul would love any excuse to spend more time in the States. So it was just always like a fun thing that like he was like, yeah, if you want to keep spending your money, I'll keep helping you. So
And we were just like, what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, why not?
totally.
We're just going to be at home in Brisbane.
Yeah, and so when we were writing the third album, we were really stumped. We had a lot of trouble writing it. Like we were in this house, but so most of this furniture actually comes from John's grandmother, apart from obviously your IKEA things, which everyone's got. But we were this was before we even had the furniture from John's grandma before, you know. And so we were like squatting. We were squatting in this house and we were just having the shittiest time. All of our songs sounded like poo and we hated it. And then I don't know whose idea, but something happened. We were like, we should just look into living in America. And we looked into it and I was like, to get an apartment in the States is like what you'd be paying in rent in Brisbane. So it was like, well, like let's just do the flights and then let's just live over there. So we'd saved up and we'd had ourselves like a budget that we were living off week to week, like paying ourselves. It's like, why don't we just do it, but in a different country?
And you lived in Brooklyn for, what was that, like a year or so? 2 years.
We didn't tell anyone when we left because we didn't want to seem like one of those bands that was departing Brisbane, so it was like super secret. Eventually, like we told people once the album started getting press, like we were like, oh, we lived in Brooklyn for 2 years, but we didn't make a song and dance about it. And we pretended we were in Australia for ages once we were over there. Because we just have this thing where we never wanted to be one of like a band that just like left Brisbane.
And it was never with the real intention of like, even, you know, like we intended to work hard, but we weren't
moving.
Like, we're going to make it.
Yeah, it was just a thing to do. And it was awesome. It was like really trying at times because we were really disconnected from a career because we hadn't, you know, like basically no career over there. Could put on shows and stuff. We did play a lot of shows and things like that. But our real career is back in Australia. Like that's where our record label was, and we did tours and stuff, which was really cool and fun. And we'd always play to a few hundred people in New York, you know, maybe 200 people or whatever, and sort of occasionally get a support slot, but. Again, it was like that really small version of what we had.
And you didn't go over specifically to try and crack it or even make the new album at first?
It was, well, we thought we were going to spend 6 months over there. And then we were just like, why are we coming home? Why don't we just stay another 6 months? We still haven't written an album. I think we did go over with the intention of writing an album. Or it became the intention pretty quickly. We got a band room and then we would just go in every day and try writing. And it was really good because we could focus, and then I guess it was really bad at times as well because it was just probably, you know, our relationship within the band was disintegrating and stuff like that, and I think Alana less wanted to be in the band, and so it was just like, it was a weird time, but it was a weird time but a really good time all at once.
So at that time, did Alana just start to have other priorities in her life, or was it because of conflicts within the band?
I think she felt heaps of pressure from the band that she felt like she couldn't. I think she felt like paralyzed from pressure, and then it was just causing, like things were just taking too, like we just couldn't work together because it wasn't gelling anymore.
And she went to she did a culinary course.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's around that time. And that sort of became like her focus after that, didn't it? Like what she wanted to do.
Well, she did a tour with
Pajama Club.
Neil.
Oh, Neil Finn, yeah. Yeah, so she ended up doing that for a bit afterwards, which I think she really enjoyed. But now she's like back full-time culinary in the States.
Did she get engaged around that time as well?
Married.
She got married.
She met an American dude and they got married, so now she's living over there full-time. And it's good now. Like she was in Australia just recently, so we hung out and it was really fun and I totally loved it. I loved hanging out with her. But it took years to get to that point. Like it was weird.
When she did leave the band, did it sort of all come to a head or did it just sort of fizzle out when you realised things weren't working?
Totally came to a head, I reckon.
Yeah.
Like it was just like something had to be done because we were trying to write this album and it just was not happening. We were like, you either got to do it our way or it's not going to work. And then I think that was it. It was just like, I can't do it that way. So, and I think our way was just, I think it was like a lot of pressure, and we were pretty demanding. We just work on the band every single day. Like, we would just go in there and we'd just do it. And John's probably the most motivated to go in every single day. And then I was probably almost as motivated as you, but I think it was too much for Alana maybe doing it every single day. But, you know, it's hard at the same time because I feel in some ways it's stupid for me to even make assumptions on her behalf because I've never really... You know, I've never really got her side of the story. I've never asked
and it
her.
would have been, and it just would have been like, I understand like when things get, like it's like that tour in England.
Yeah.
Like, shit gets too much.
Shit just gets
Like,
too
and
much.
you just can't do it forever because it's nowhere to live.
Totally.
Being in a band.
You got to do the best thing. You got to do the best thing for yourself at all times. And I think that's what made, like, that was the one good thing that came out of it was just like, at the end of the day, I only want Alana to live her life the way that she wants to live it. So it sort of made it easier that it was like, oh, well, we're going to live it the way we want to and you're going to live it the way you want to. So it's everyone wins, even though it seems strange.
But at the time when she left, was it on a bit of a sour note or did you leave on good terms?
It
was, I just don't feel like it was neither good nor bad. It was just everyone had their own way that I think it was just strange. It was just strange. Like, I wasn't necessarily
I think everybody
angry.
knew it was going to happen at some stage, so it wasn't a shock, but it
was weird.
Yeah, it was just weird. We kind of just parted ways and tried to work out our lives separately.
Yeah.
And then it worked out.
Did you consider like dissolving the band completely?
Yes.
Yeah.
We did. And you know, I sometimes don't know if it would have been a better or worse thing. You know, because
we probably just would have released the same album under a different name.
Yeah,
really.
totally.
I think that's
so you always would have had another project that you did together.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of whether it be the Grates.
Yeah. Because it already had a lot of music by that stage that we were really into. So we were always going to write. Yeah, definitely.
And so how did the band dynamic of writing songs change after your drummer left?
Well, we'd already sort of started writing a lot without drums anyways. So that was something that...
Yeah, drums were like the last thing we were adding at that stage already.
Yeah, so that sort of... We just continued writing the same way that we had and...
Just get dudes to come in.
Yeah, just got dudes to come in, got them to play on stuff and then just tried finding... And then we just ended up hearing about Ben, who ended up playing on the next album, Ben Marshall, and he's just a rad drummer. He was just the most proficient drummer we'd ever seen, worked with. Like, obviously, there are a lot of kick-ass drummers out there that you see in other bands. Not that we ever wanted one of them, but this dude was like, Ben's fully trained. And it was just really, it was incredibly easy working with him because he was so trained that nothing would faze him. Because that was what he lives to play
he could
drums.
do anything you asked.
Yeah.
And he'd just do it.
There's nothing that he can do. It was so all right. And he had no ego. And that was not that Alana did, but I mean, it was just cool that you could actually make a request. You'd be like, Ben had come up with something, but then you could make a request and it was just cool that he would be like, sure. He's just that kind of...
The easygoing kind of guy.
Studio drummer dude where it's just like, he's just happy because he's playing drums and he's really good at it. So that was amazing.
So the experience of making your third album, Secret Rituals, was a lot easier than the other two?
It's probably the hardest.
Hardest.
Apart from the drums. The
drums are the easiest. We had so much trouble with the producers we worked with. We
were just like...
We'd never fought with
conflict.
producers before, but we were in complete conflict with these dudes. It's the first time we'd ever... Because we hadn't fought with Brian Deck and we didn't fight with Peter Cadis. Like, occasionally you'd have disagreements where you're like, nah, this is the way it should be. But this was like actual fights.
Yeah, and I was wondering whether like my conflict was like, are we just fighting because we're so used to fighting?
And we would get paranoid. Yeah, we were like...
That we were just...
You're just sabotaging yourself.
Yeah.
Like maybe we're just fucked in the head. Maybe
but like when it came down to it, these dudes just didn't share the same
they totally
aesthetics.
Did. Like I kind of had that. You were more worried about the fact that you thought you were the problem than I did. I think sometimes I would get paranoid and think maybe John's right, but for the most part I was like, nah, these dudes don't get it.
So how did you come to work with those guys?
They just courted us heaps. So it would be at all of our shows, asked us to do a free demo. Then we did a demo with them and it went really well. Like we did Turn Me On with them and it went great. Then we were like, let's do it. They're in Brooklyn. Why don't we just do it? So we just did it. Well, it's actually a production team. So it was the Gus Van Gogh, who was the dude who was at all of our shows and in constant contact with us. And we didn't meet Werner until basically the day we did the demo anyways. Yeah, and we just thought, hell, they're at the right price. They were in Brooklyn. We thought we'll just do it.
And so when you were recording the album, what exactly was it that you fought over?
Just like
aesthetics.
Kind of like, just like, I guess they'd been doing it for a long time and they just had their way that they did everything. And like, I hate rules. So I wanted to do things just my way because it's my band. And then they did it. Then they were like, you can't do that. And I'm like, why not? And they're like, because that's a fifth. And fifths don't, they like sound Asian. They don't sound like, and I'm like, well, I want it to sound, I think it's cool it sounds Asian.
Yeah.
And then you just get in a fight like that.
And a Discord?
Where they're just like, why do you use fifths all the time? I'm like, well, that's my band. That's what I do. It sounds cool to me.
Because I always do a lot of harmonies and fifths, and they'd always be like, nah.
Or our harmonies aren't like traditional harmonies. Usually they're like counter melodies that.
Yeah.
And they just could not wrap their head around that either. They just wanted us to do like straight up harmonies, and it's just not like that's just not fun.
And it's not. But not only is it not fun, I actually don't like the sound
doesn't come naturally either.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's not what I do. And when I sing the normal melodies, I'm like, I don't know, it just doesn't.
And I played a keyboard part and then I came in the next day and it had been changed, like...
shit like that makes you want to punch someone in the face. Because it had a Discord.
It ended up getting like everything, like we ended up getting everything the way we wanted it. Well, almost. There was like some big things at the beginning that I would have, like the way that we recorded drums and... There are a couple of things at the beginning I probably would have done differently, but we were like, yeah, let's just let these dudes know what they're doing.
Because we're kind of always accommodating because we don't want to fight.
Towards the end, it was
we just were like, can't accommodate. Yeah. You cannot have this. Just in like Borrowed Skin, there's that Discord, and that was a massive problem. And we were like, it just has to be in there. That's like, have you heard the song? And that was chaos. I mean... It just never ended because you'd be in the studio with them for 12 hours at a time.
Or adding feedback, like putting feedback and stuff, they just hated
it.
Or not.
Singing off mic, they hated it.
Yeah.
It was just like so many rules that they had in their mind that I just couldn't get my head around. It made me like want to run around and like...
It's so different to Brian Deck or Peter Catus where they were just like... They were coming up with the crazy ideas.
They were just all
and they were showing us like how exciting it can be in a studio, like... Singing from across the room or like miking a... Like
Peter Catus's favourite thing was at the end of Two Kinds of Right, I started at one end of the room and then walked close to the mic.
Yeah.
And Peter Catus was like, great, like he loved it.
Yeah.
Just because he didn't have to mix it. He was like, I don't have to mix that. You mixed it by walking. And...
It just has that big echoey
thing.
And
those dudes, no way. But what were you saying about one of the mic things Peter Catus did?
We used to like, with Brian Deck, he'd like... run your vocals through a tiny little amp and put it in the cupboard in the back of a room, and then Mike, like he was always experimenting, and these dudes weren't experimenting. They learnt what they did like 10 years ago, and they've
never changed anything.
And I kind of have a big problem with people that aren't willing to go with trial and error, because I actually just truly think that there is such...
Yeah, he said to me like, what you guys do is just throw shit against the wall and see what sticks, and that's not how we work. But that's definitely
how we work. And I've always felt like, how pretentious is that to think that you know the best way?
Yeah, for any artist to do what they do.
For just anything, when you don't have trial and error. Like the most basic things of life are built on trial and error. And for somebody to be like, nah, this is it. I just didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. So yeah, that was crazy. It was and I think it was probably extra hard because... Nah, that's bullshit. I was going to say maybe it was extra hard because Alana wasn't in it. I don't think it was. I think it was just we had a real hard time working with these dudes' attitudes, and we just had two totally different attitudes. And in the end, they mixed the album, and then we just ended up getting it remixed by somebody else. Part of that was I didn't like them mixed. Part of it was I couldn't stand I just couldn't stand him. And there was this other dude, John O'Mahony, and we'd spoken to him and we were really close to recording with him, and it didn't end up happening. But his ideals were much more in line with what we wanted to do. And it was just like, I just had to get another influence on it. Like, we needed to get another influence on it because I just could not feel confident giving it to the world just having worked with them.
Did you ever consider changing producers mid-album?
Oh, man, we wanted to so bad. It was just
like Brian Deck had come down from like Chicago for like a night, and we met up with him for breakfast. He was like, "Come and do it with me," and we were like,
man,
really want to.
I really wanted to, but I think Paul has a big thing with trial and error too, and he wanted to see if it made our album better. He sort of was like, he kept being like, sometimes the best shit comes out of the worst circumstances.
You had your album remixed and you were pretty happy with it in the end?
Yeah, I was happy with it in the end,
Yeah.
Like everything, like we learned lessons from it. Yeah. There's things we'd do differently next time, and then probably the time after that as well.
Yeah, but I love it. There's definitely like songs on that album that I really still enjoy, like With You. I don't know, I really like it. It's such a big, heavy, thick song. I don't know, it's weird.
It seemed like the songs on Secret Rituals were just a bit slower than everything on the first two albums. There was still that energy, but it was a different kind of energy.
Tried to keep them closer to the demo speeds as well, because we'd noticed that our songs were just getting faster and faster in the studio. What we liked about the demo speeds, we tried to keep.
Would it be fair to say that the way the songs were written was a bit different? Because it seems like they were built around all these different guitar bits rather than on the first two, you could tell there was like a bass.
But you're definitely right. I think it was because we were using drums last. Our number one resource was guitars, so we did a lot more guitar vocal writing. And then because it was easy, a lot more guitar vocal.
Yeah, it sounds like all the different lead guitar bits are much more integral to the songs on Secret Rituals, whether it's on the first two, it was all, you could tell it was all power chords in the background, holding it all together.
Yeah. It was definitely, I think, being in that little studio space, and it was just, John just had a guitar. Well, it just sounded better. I think that's it. When you've got one instrument, it sounds okay, but the second you've got two, even though it was just another guitar, it made it seem... all of a sudden it's more melodic, and it actually just makes it even nicer to sing to, because you've got more notes to work with. And we use bass like a bass. I also think it was just like when we were writing in that band room, because it was just, you would put down you would try to come up with the two guitar lines. Yeah. And then, because when singing with one guitar wasn't as fun as singing when you had two, like all of a sudden it sounded more melodic.
Yeah, it was, especially when we didn't have any drums.
When we didn't have any drums, totally.
Like we had to work out some way to make it as energetic. And
then it was fun working with bass then too, because then you got to free up different areas of your guitar playing because you had bass in there.
And that's something that's really come through on your live shows since then as a 4-piece, like where you've got the keys and the bass. You're doing more lead bits, like when you play live now.
It took like a massive weight off my shoulders because I think up until then I was like really had to drive everything along, even the drums a little bit, and then once we kind of had a bass player and a drummer that were linked together, it was like I can relax finally. It's the first time I really felt like I relaxed on stage.
In terms of the songwriting, you've said that Secret Rituals is about the end of relationships, and specifically like the two ways that you two as people look at it. Like Patience, you've said as a really celebratory thing. Yeah. And John, I guess what would be your take on that? What was your side of it?
I think it's like kicking the dirt, just like getting drunk. You like being more aggressive, like
wallowing in the misery of it.
I think sometimes you've even said occasionally like it is sort of like in a generalized way, like you doing the music had a more of a masculine approach to it the season coming to an end, where I probably had a more actual realistically lady approach, where it was
mine more destructive.
You were more destructive with it than I think I was.
And is that like specifically in reference to your relationship with Alana?
Definitely. I think definitely like it was just like, it was huge. But then, it was also funny, I guess, living in the States too, like being so disconnected from things and being inspired by different things. But I think it was so much of it was to do with, I think I'd always written about Alana, like Science is Golden is about Alana, and there's bits throughout. She's an interesting person. There's definitely been a lot of things that I've done that I think written on every album that have, something's come back to Alana, even if it's just one little spot.
Who were the scene sucking fuckers in Science is Golden?
Religious people.
Oh, okay. It does seem like, you have, your lyrics have always been, like they make up a big tapestry of some big in-joke that only you would ever get.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Subtle references to things only you know about.
Yeah, it's just it's not a universal reference. It's just too personal for anyone to understand.
But the way that comes across to listeners as abstract is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it just sounds like random imagery of things.
Yeah.
But makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Do you think that it was a bit less so on the last album? That was more direct?
Definitely, it was more direct on the last album. It was really fun. Writing really direct, like I didn't have to... It was just cool not trying to think of a language where I got to conceal my true feelings about stuff. It was really fun trying to be really open and more honest and direct. It was a challenge because that's not my natural state of being. It's like I want to like conceal parts. And in that one I got to be like... It was just fun using language that was much more simplistic.
Do you think that's a thing that most musicians go through eventually? Like they start out abstract, trying to, make things just sound cool and then head towards something that's more tangible and maybe truthful?
I think that there's a lot of probably people
it's probably more like songwriting turning into more of a craft as well. I think it's like the truth, that truth of like, of just it spilling out of you disappears, and then you got to find another way to be honest.
Yeah, probably. Maybe it's like a little bit to do with confidence. Maybe I just felt feeling
that you
confident.
don't have to hide behind.
Yeah, it just felt confident being open, and it was cool. We were being more direct. We definitely. I think everything about that second album we were more direct with. Like
the third album.
Oh, sorry, with the third album we were more direct with. I think probably just because we're a little bit older too, and there's so much stuff that you've got to filter through. Like even just trying to make a film clip, there's so many. You have to try to find the right people, and everyone, like a lot of people had really flouncy ideas. Like somebody wanted to make an airplane, and we were on the airplane and we're getting chased by somebody else, and I was like, I don't have time for that. Like I'm not,
Yeah.
And there was somebody else who wanted like.
I think at that stage too, like everyone's got. Like everyone knew who our band was as like a preconceived idea of what they think we would like, and they're catering to what we might have liked like
based
4
on
or 5 years ago.
Your first couple of videos, which were very light and party like.
Yeah, like my eyebrows turning into caterpillars that crawl down my face, and then like walk around and we like follow them and stuff,
the adventure
and,
of the caterpillar.
And then we were like, not doing that anymore. Like
those, like the original videos though were like our ideas. So then when people are trying to come up with ideas that seem like they're like trying to be like you, they're just not. You could never get, the closer you get, the further it is away from what you'd really do.
I feel like it's the uncanny chasm.
The uncanny valley.
The uncanny valley is that the closer the pitch gets to something that we would have thought of ourselves, the weirder it is. Yeah, I don't know. So I think that when like Dimitri because his idea was so not like anything that we...
And it was very vague
it was very vague.
It was just like 2 photos and a sentence. Yeah. Everyone else's was like 3 pages of stuff that was just making me angrier, like angrier and angrier.
And then we were like, all right, we'll do it. Because it's just like I didn't have a preconceived idea of how it was going to turn out, because I was like, fuck, I don't know what this dude's going to do, but I don't want to be in an airplane, like. And I just kept thinking, I was also having trouble too, like, I'm going to give up the Earth's valuable resources to make an airplane for a film clip. It's probably going to be crappy, and I don't want to have to suck that out of the Earth. You
don't want that carbon footprint on your conscience.
That. Yeah, I kept being like, I don't need fake airplanes. It was always going to be direct, I guess, because we were the only 2 people in the band now, really, and it was always hard with Ben because we love Ben, but he's an American who lives in Brooklyn, so there's no way we could have put Ben in film clips and stuff like that because he just would have been setting yourself up. It's like falling in love with somebody that you could never be in a relationship with.
He had to go home.
Yeah,
at some
totally.
point.
That's it. He always had to go home. We didn't really think about it that much. We just did what we thought was best at the time.
Have you ever really paid much attention to the critical reaction to your music?
I don't think Patience does, but I read a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I don't read it as much as John. On occasions, John will send me like something that's really nice. Maybe I looked on the second album, but I honestly can't tell you. Like if it was going to be in Rolling Stone or something, I'd get it for sure. But yeah, you've read everything.
Yeah, I read
almost.
stuff like because of the internet.
Yeah.
It's like, what else are we going to do?
Does that affect you? Do you take any of it on board? Or?
No.
I reckon it affects you.
Oh, really?
Totally.
Well, I guess I don't think I take anything on board though. I think I wrestle with it, but I don't think I don't know. We get good reviews mostly.
Yeah.
Like if 1 out of 10 of them's bad, I don't it's only 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
There was some time I remember somebody reviewed us and it was sort of negative, but they had one point that resonated with us.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, that was interesting.
Was it a
we
positive
agreed
point or
with
a
it.
negative point?
No, it was something that we could have done slightly better. And then we were like, yeah, we probably could have.
Yeah. And I remember there was one that said we're tired, seemed tired on stage. And
Yeah. And that was sort of true. That was that
we'd come back from England the night before and then we played at the arena.
Then we played at the arena, it's true.
And it wasn't
I sprained my ankle. Was that the night I sprained my ankle or was that a different time? You remember that night we played at the arena and that afternoon I jumped around on stage and just sprained my ankle. And then that gig, I was just like, fuck, it really hurt the whole show. That was our bad review. I didn't feel bad about that because I was like, I sprained my ankle 2 hours earlier, guys. It was this big. What did you want? Really
I remember we got a bad review in our first album. I think that's when it affected me the most. NME gave our album bad reviews.
NME only gave our album bad reviews.
And I just hated their guts. And then Pitchfork, we got a 5.4 or something.
But that from Pitchfork, that was pretty good.
Not so much back then.
I don't reckon anything. It was really and they hung shit on Brian Deck in it, and Brian. It was all in Chicago, so he was kind of tight. It was it's kind of sad for him.
Yeah, I felt really sad for him. Good one, pricks. He's in the same city as you. Thanks. He's only just a great person. I was really upset. But I think, the NME stuff killed me more than anything. They would they'd call me a poor man's Karen O.
Yeah.
And they called her a brain dead Minnie Mouse. A brain damaged Minnie Mouse. Brain damaged Minnie Mouse.
Classic. Said I would the one time I did a show in pajamas was at the Rev in Brisbane, but they would comment on my clothes in England and say I had no style and that I was wearing pajamas on stage and shit. And I was like, the NME sucks. This is what we're looking to. Oh man, it pissed me off so much. Yeah, that was they were our worst reviews, but they are so bad that it made me feel above them because I was like, why do you call someone a brain damaged Minnie Mouse? And I also just felt like it was really sexist. I kind of felt there can't be 2 women in rock and roll, but there can be a million front men.
Yeah.
But the second that there's 2 women, even though the Yayas were 1,000 times bigger than us, it was they need to compare it.
Yeah.
Whereas I was like, why don't you compare the dude from, I don't know, so I the dude from fucking The National with Interpol or something. I don't know. Just compare 2 other people that are similar than me.
But choose one to make the shit one.
Yeah. Instead, they're both lauded, and I'm just the shit one. I thought it was really they were such draggers.
Does it still affect you when you read negative press? For the most recent album?
I can't remember.
We haven't done enough in the band in recent. Our last album was a year or 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, probably in August. So it's not we've just been too focused on other things.
So you came back and you toured Secret Rituals for a bit. Not as extensive as before.
No.
But you did a national tour and you played Splendor again. What was that like working with the new band in a live environment, playing with Ben and with your friend from school, Patience?
Yeah, Miranda. She only played on that first tour we did, and then we went to being a 3-piece then for the next tour. It was fun. It was definitely more relaxing for me on stage. I felt calm.
Yeah, it was good. It was just super tight, really powerful. Ben was just a powerhouse, and then I think it got really powerful when we went to the 3-piece with Ben. It was like using samples that he was triggering and John was triggering, and it was just really narrowed, and it's, I don't know, you didn't have to think about anyone else, and we were all really, because we'd done the album together and stuff, and I all think we just really knew it really was like somebody's the lead singer, this person's the guitarist and triggers these things, Ben does the drums and does this, and everyone just had their roles. Everyone was really confident in their roles, and we just zoned. We just zoned really hard, and we were just crazy tight. Like, we'd never been as tight ever in our lives. In some ways, though, I guess it wasn't as spontaneous because we were like doing so much more on stage with, like technical shit,
And we'd never done that. We'd never done any of that before.
Yeah, so that was definitely, and there was like 1 or 2 songs where Ben, would have to play to a click. It was like the good with the bad. The good was that it was really powerful and tight and just really felt like you could nail it. But then on the downside, it wasn't.
The margin for error was much
smaller.
But that made it way less. Well, not way less. It just made it less exciting. It was less spontaneous.
You played a secret show at Rick's around this time, performing under the name Puke Party, I believe.
Yeah.
Do you really miss performing in venues that small and that packed, like when you go out on tour now?
It's really fun playing something that small and that packed. I guess we've done a lot of that, especially every time we toured America or England, like it was little tiny venues, that would be, sometimes they'd have 3 people, like if you were in Colorado in the middle of nowhere, and then sometimes it'd be packed and rad, depending on who you're supporting or who was supporting you. And it's an easier show with a room like that. It's a really good, easy show, and it's really fun. So it's definitely...
Yeah, it's more just like human. The crowd are on almost the same level as you.
Yeah, and you just like...
And you can have you can have conversations with them. And no one cares. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to like keep an energy going. It's just all part of the...
It's like that nerve pathway to the person at the furthest end of the room. It's so much more exciting because that nerve pathway from you to them is just so short. Whereas like if we play in a big show at the Tivoli, and it's like that nerve pathway from you to the person who's on that balcony behind 3 rows in is so much more distant, and that's if they can even see you.
Yeah, you can't at the Tivoli.
You just can't at the Tivoli. It
sight lines are terrible.
But I love playing in front of a big crowd because it just makes you feel like awesome. Like people like your band, and everyone loves feeling like that.
Especially at festivals, you guys have always seemed to have a really good time and like be a really great festival band, because even for people who might not be diehard fans, like it's the greats at a festival. Like you got to go on and party.
Yeah. I want to try to do that at a festival because I always feel like I find it really hard now to watch bands on stage that don't do shit, whose music that maybe I don't know that much. Because when you're at a festival, there's so many other things happening. It's really fun at a festival when you have a big stage, and it's so much harder work because the stage is big. But I feel like at least if you can like move around, if I can move around and we can sound loud and good, and if I can move around and jump in the crowd and do all these things, at least that's exactly it. If you don't know our music very much, you might just want to stay for the show.
Exactly.
But you're not going to stay for the show if I'm just doing nothing, because I wouldn't. Like if I didn't know a band and then they weren't really doing anything, if I want to hear them, I'm going to listen to them at home on record because it's probably going to be more exciting than standing next to somebody who's maybe sweaty or talking or smoking a cigarette or something. So
after you broke your leg, you played a gig at Sunset Sounds,
Yeah.
and your leg was in a cast. You could not move,
Yeah.
so instead you sat on a throne
Yeah.
and performed.
Instead,
the
we
whole
just
set.
went ridiculous.
Was that hard, or do you think you really pulled it off, even though your mobility was so restricted?
It felt like an excellent show. It got pulled off. Yeah, it got pulled off. I felt, when I left the stage, I still was surprised at how much energy went into it because my leg was throbbing.
Yeah.
I think from circulation.
Yeah.
Like my heart rate had obviously increased in my circulation and my leg was throbbing. It was cool. That was a really fun night because we got all of our friends involved and made them dress in those ridiculous chicken and wolf outfits and stuff just to try to spruce things up. And I dressed up as Snow White on a That was ridiculous. That was great.
You know,
Ridiculous.
just like, we have to go over the top.
Yeah, we were just like, yeah.
To compensate.
We totally wanted to compensate.
Yeah. That week you played the secret show at Rick's was interesting because Alana was actually in town playing with Pyjama Club the same week.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Did you get to see her then?
No.
Have you seen her play with Pyjama Club?
No. We intentionally we didn't talk for a long time because a really wise man said to us, if you want to have a relationship with Alana, or if you want to have a relationship with anyone, you have to not speak to them so you can both change. So when you actually do start talking again, you're different people with different experiences. Because if you just start hanging out again, you're just going to be the same people fighting over the same things. So we intentionally didn't do anything for years. So that way it was like last month when we got to hang out, it was great because it was like, oh, we're two totally different people now. Like I'm not the same me, she's not the same her, so we could just have fun.
Is she pretty much done with music now?
No. Yeah, I've got no idea.
Yeah, I don't think she's doing anything at the moment, but I don't know if anyone's...
So since you've toured the third album, you've spent a lot of time here in Brisbane laying the groundwork for opening your own cafe, Southside Tea Room.
Yeah.
So was it in Brooklyn you first had the idea of creating that sort of space?
The first time we started talking about it was when we were touring America for the first couple of times, like in 2005. We were talking about a coffee shop and a dive bar.
Just the dive bars.
And just
so good.
Yeah, we were just obsessed with them in America. And yeah, and then we would always talk about it as a thing we wanted to do. And then we just got a chance to do it.
Yeah, we just sort of came back to Brisbane and it was just felt like it was the thing to do. Rick's now is owned by RGs and just wanted to have a place that was for people to go and hang out and not have to worry about what they looked like or what they did, and for it to get a bit crazy and just to have really felt like we just should do it. Just
just because someone had to. We've only had that small bar license in Brisbane for a couple of years, and no one had not many people had really taken advantage of it. It's starting to happen more and more.
Yeah.
But in Melbourne, you have small. It's
They're
part
everywhere.
of their culture, and it's sucks that we've been so. Brisbane's just such a letdown for shit like that.
Yeah,
they just cling on to these rules for so long.
Yeah.
You don't really have a local in Brisbane if you're in the suburbs.
No, yeah, totally.
Or if you do, it's one of those corporate ones owned by Coles or Woolies.
BWS or something.
Yeah.
And that's why I just felt like Brisbane just had a lot of, you had the indie cafes and then there was Scratch that opened. There was a couple bars. It felt like the south side, this side of town didn't really have much going on, but this is the side of town we came from. There's a lot of masculinity to bars. And I just wanted to open a place where it was just more unisex.
Yeah.
Really co-ed and loose.
And more welcoming to just everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when we lived in New York, in Park Slope South, there was a bar near our house that there'd always be someone rocking up with a baby, and
yeah.
and it just wasn't a big deal that there was babies in bars and dogs out the front and
just something with a lot of humanity, real humanity. People have children, people have dogs, people live in the suburbs. People get drunk, people party, people want to eat lunch and hang out all day and do just some the real people want to not wear high heels, or maybe that's just what. I'm just saying all these things, but that's what
or wear shorts.
Or wear shorts.
Yeah.
One of the earliest times when we came back just after living in this, after we toured the last album, John went out to a bar in the city.
No, I went to
a bar in the valley.
A bar in the valley with Luke from Violent Soho and my friend, and we got denied entry because we were all wearing shorts. And
Even though it was January,
it was the hottest day of the year so
Yeah.
far, and I was just why are we so why is there so many rules?
So many rules.
That's not a rule that that's not a law. That's just some dudes decided that you can't wear shorts.
And I was just I hate that about anywhere in the world. I'd hate that, but I'm yeah.
And you notice it coming back into Brisbane after being overseas, after being in America for a year, you come back and you notice there's There's signs everywhere telling you what to do.
All the time.
In America, it's just like way more carefree.
But what's even funny about that is mates of ours that stayed with us from Montreal went to New York and were like, there's signs everywhere. Like, Montreal has even less signs than New York. And we're looking at New York as in New York has hardly any signs. So to them, Brisbane would just be so nannied, you know, mothered all the time. I just kind of felt good. I just wanted to give back. Because I just felt like we could do something in Brisbane that was totally different and cool and, well, like maybe not cool in like a cool way, but just good. Like I just want to do something that anyone could be a part of. Old, young, doesn't matter. Just for artists, you know, with all our grants that get chopped by, you know, our like Campbell Newman and no literacy award and those sorts of things. And I was just like, we can do something that's really nurturing and just want it to be a really nurturing environment.
Did you also make a conscious decision you want to take some time off music as well?
No, I think it just consumed us.
It just consumed us.
Yeah, we were hoping to do both at the same time and then just couldn't.
Sometimes it reminds me a little bit, now we've talked about the band, I hadn't thought about this before, like Mosquito Island. Like, it's almost like I got that sort of feeling with the bar where it's like I just want to, like, there's the standard and I want to fuck with the standard and say, like, you can just do, you don't have to do
it's like the sticker on Gravity Won't Get You High, the die cut warning sticker. It's like just messing with how things are supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And still kind of playing by the rules, but play like around them. Grey areas. I love grey areas.
Yeah. We opened this from not a technical standpoint. Like, I had to learn how to make coffee. We have to learn how to change kegs. Like, I didn't know how to do any of the shit that makes a bar run, but I'd known that we'd spent a lot of time in bars playing them.
So you knew what you wanted to see as a punter.
Yeah.
Who walks into a bar.
Yeah, like I knew how I wanted to feel when I went in.
Yeah.
And there's like a million things we're going to change because we also did it on a total shoestring budget where we got furniture for free and, you know, we just, whatever we could get for free we used in the shop, and anyone from Brisbane would go in and see somebody's grandmother's table and somebody else's share.
There's new stuff lounge. Like two new stools that came in today. I don't know where from.
I know, but I think I know where they came from. I think she told me she was going to bring them in, not shitting you, like 6 months ago.
Right.
She probably this lady.
But that's totally part of the charm of it, that it's so thrown together. It has this really homemade aesthetic to it. And it always reminds me of the sort of place that you would wander in, like, on the way home from school in the 90s, but into a place that hadn't been changed since the 70s.
Yeah.
That sort of really old family kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And you also run like a bunch of events there really supporting like local creative endeavors. You do like mini markets, bands there on Saturday nights.
Yeah.
You have video game tournaments. Are you really trying to sort of foster a community around it as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like, it's not so much that it's kind of just what we know how to do. I think we're just using the same approach we did with the start of the band. It's like the message board at the start of our band. It's like, we're kind of okay at building the little communities.
I'm not fostering a community in a sense where I'm trying to pressure anything to happen. I feel like we just do some things and see what happens. And we also make the space available for other people to use. So like there's this zine fair happening, and that's really like these people that already make zines coming together to do, and it's just really fun to know that you've got a space that you can go.
Yeah, some people come to us with a good idea and we just say, cool, do it. Like someone wanted to do a book club, they emailed me, I'm like, cool, let's start it.
So there's
if they seem like they're nice people with like good ideas, like
I'd
rather someone else do it than me.
Oh,
it's too much work.
So it's that thing where it's not like I love the idea of fostering a community. I love the idea of community, and I love the idea of like being able to hand out tools to help other people make a community and do those things. But I definitely don't like the idea of intentionally trying to like force people into doing things. If it just sort of happens to happen organically, that's great. And if it doesn't, we just don't worry about it, you know? But I do really enjoy the idea of there being, I get proud sometimes, like not proud, just happy when I see like especially when other people form their community around Southside, because I don't want to be out to start communities. I just want to I just want to have a platform that other people can use to do stuff with. And I think that's what's really fun about it, is because we have enough trouble just trying to keep the platform alive.
Yeah.
Don't really have enough hands to go around being in charge of making things happen.
Where do you see Southside Tea Room going in the future? Like, what plans do you still have for it?
I just want to get it so it runs slightly better, so we don't have to be there as much, so we can write music
and also get a chance to work on it from a different point of view, where we're a little bit more separated. You know, where we're not in there like 5 days a week. Like we're open so much. We're only now just starting to get a chance to take a couple of days off and approach it from a different angle and kind of build it in a different direction.
Yeah, that's like the immediate plan, is just to try to get it working without us needing to be in the shop so much. Yeah, we can work on it and then maybe do band things again, which would be great. And then I just hope that it becomes a place that lots of good things come out of. And it's like a little where it can just hold its own. I'd love it to be able to hold its own, to be a little place that runs by, sort of just, it can just survive.
And sort of self-sustain. And a place where people meet other people, and maybe where creative ideas are born just through people making friends and interactions, and just feeling comfortable with their creativity and then chasing it or something, Like, I like the idea that it's contributing to Brisbane. To the cultural output.
To the culture of Brisbane the most. Yeah.
And Patience, in 2009, you first met Mel Buttle in a Hungry Jack's in Melbourne.
Yeah.
You just taped an episode of talking about your generation, and you were very drunk.
Yes.
Do you actually remember meeting her at that time?
I don't remember her face. I remember going to Hungry Jack's. I don't remember her face. I remember the burger. I remember the burger. I remember the red wine I had in my bag. I don't. It's like I have a weird half memory of Mel Buttle, and I don't know if I've implanted her now because she's told me.
Yeah.
or if she jogged my memory. But yeah, I can't really remember it at all. But yeah, I started communicating with her on Twitter in the States, and I was like, this is cool. This girl's in Brisbane. And then it was like she wrote that blog one day talking about how it's like, just because she is on radio and television and stuff like that, she still really struggles, and her friends don't understand.
Struggles
like financially creatively. And lots of friends that, she went to school with that have 9-to-5 jobs, can't understand why she's so stressed out and poor, whatever. And I think, so that was really interesting, and it was sort of a heartbreaking blog, and you read it and you forwarded it to me. John read it and forwarded it to me and said, you got to start a podcast with this girl. And then I said, okay. Then I just contacted her and said, come and do a podcast, come around to my house.
Did you really identify with that blog post?
I don't know if I really identified with it, or if I just felt like I could understand that she was like she needed, I just thought she needed some other thing to do.
I think that's what happened. I just felt like she's really creative and she's really awesome, and she was just getting tired a little bit, maybe. And she just needed... I kind of felt like it must be really hard doing what she's doing alone, and that I'm not in the same...
comedy is a whole different thing when
totally
you're just in your own head all the time.
And I just felt like it would be a cool... I just really thought Mel's rad, and I just wanted to make sure she was okay. That sounds terrible, but I was like, I want this girl to be awesome, and let's just do something that neither of us has done before, and it's going to be fun and different. Maybe I didn't know it was going to happen, had no idea. And then I think it was really cool for Mel to have a different project that involved somebody else and didn't involve her. And she said it a few times as well.
And stand-up is a very solitary thing.
It's so solitary, and I think it's cool that she's just got a collaborator now, and somebody to check in with. That she gets to, we get to check in with each other. And I think this is what happens with me and John too, is we love working with people that are our friends. Like, my sister works at the shop. I hire friends. Some of my favourite relationships are friendships where we get to collaborate on something. Like that's what our whole relationship's built off. And that's the cool thing with Mel, is that I think Mel has that same approach. Mel's got a very few friends that she doesn't work with. Like she's got a couple friends from high school and stuff like that are close friends, like I do. Like I've got 3 really close girlfriends that don't have anything to do with the entertainment industry that I've known for ages. But most of my other relationships are all based on working. I know Mel has that same sort of approach to friendship and relationships. So it was sort of I think that's part of why it worked out too, is that Mel enjoys was something that we got to be friends, but we got to work on something.
Do you think it would be as entertaining if Mel wasn't a comedian and you weren't a performer?
No way. Oh, well, I don't think it would be anywhere near as entertaining if Mel wasn't a comedian, because I'm like her sidekick.
You're the straight man in the relationship.
I'm the straight man and she's the comedy, because I'm not a comedian. Like I think I'm just honest and frank, and maybe I think I'm just a sincere person, and Mel's a very funny person. And I think that's why it works, because if she doesn't have something funny to say, generally I'll have something sincere to say. Yeah. And I think they're both really human attributes that that you can relate to in a way. I think that's why it works. If Mel wasn't a comedian, it'd just be 2 people being sincere, and that's just like, who wants that?
She definitely has that comic timing as well.
Yeah, she's great. She keeps it spicy, and then I just genuinely want to change lives. Not that I do it, but I'm like, let me help you make your life better. Whereas Mel's like, zing, zing, zinger, woo. And
she has a very self-lacerating sense of humour, but she does it in a way that doesn't make you feel uncomfortable.
True.
Like there's so many comedians, like especially male comedians, like middle-aged guys that, talk about what losers they are, and it's just a bit sad. But when Mel does it, I don't know how, but she just seems to have this way of you're laughing with her and at her at the same time.
Yeah.
Not just one or the other.
Yeah, she's a good gal. She's got cool shit.
You starred the Minutes in August 2011. Over the first year, you sort of had a fairly consistent rate of bringing them out, and they were pretty long podcasts as well. But in the past 6 months or so, the rate has steadily dropped off, and they've been shorter and shorter. Are you just like running out of things to talk about, or have you both just been really busy?
It's the busy. Well, sort of in the last 6 months, like 6 months ago is when John and I really had to step in at Southside and change the way we were doing everything, because it was we just needed to we didn't want the business to fail. And so everything was sort of swimming along, but we were like, we can't sustain this. Like, we need to make this really work. So we really stepped in at Southside, and then Mel's started writing. She's writing for a couple TV shows.
And she was working on a Melbourne Comedy Festival show.
Yeah.
Well, and then spent a month down there.
Yeah, spent a month down there. So it's been... Yeah, so that was it. It was just like stuff just got really busy. And hopefully, like, it's my favourite thing. I want to get it back on track.
Getting you the podcast.
I got to get it back on track. It's just so, got to find time. It's hard finding time for us to record it. But I do think that the more irregular things are, the shorter they actually get, in a sense, because your routine's out of whack.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes during the week now, because I'm working so much, I'm not writing down. Sometimes I get ideas and I'm like, I would get ideas and I'd be like, and I put it on my phone and go, PPT, which is potential podcast topic, #, and write out the thing. I haven't written a PPT note for myself for the last 6 months as well, which I think shows that I'm not dedicating as much time to it in the other hours where we're not making the podcast, to when something weird happens, keeping note. And my brain's so full of work stuff and life stuff now that, it's hard to remember the crazy stuff that happens.
In August last year, you revealed on the podcast that you had been in a relationship with John for the past 7 years and that you were getting married. Why did you decide to share that at that time?
Well, we were getting married, so I was like, might as well just be open about it because we're going to have a big party. And I think it was just really fun with the podcast. It felt really cool to be talking about really personal things. So it just made sense to talk about. Felt it just was a new cool thing to talk about, it being personal. And it was getting hard to not talk about being in a relationship with John, because it started feeling so good to talk about personal stuff on the podcast. Yeah.
And you really got like the fans involved too. I mean, they provided decorations for your wedding.
They're the best. As you can tell, they're all still up.
Yeah.
There's like pom-poms
stuff in
and
the tree
bunting
outside.
and shit everywhere. Because it was just so cool. We left, we just left it all up.
You and Mel have started talking about your mental health issues on the podcast. Yeah. Do you think that it's really important to talk about that sort of stuff in a public forum to like get rid of the stigma? Or
Totally. I totally just feel like fine about it. Knowing the people that listen to the podcast and getting the emails, the kinds of emails and letters that we get off people, I just felt great about it. Just felt
the cool
fine.
thing about podcasts is the people that listen care, and the people that don't listen just don't listen. Like, they don't know it exists.
Yeah.
It's like a real little bubble.
You don't get haters listening to it.
Yeah. And I did just feel like it was, I think that's why I felt okay about it, was just because I knew there was that safety net of it being a podcast and it's only listened to by a specific group of people. It didn't feel like it was my duty, but I just felt it was a good thing to do for the people.
For other people out there.
Just a good thing to do for other people out there.
Who are going through the same thing.
To break the stigma of, mental health. And because it was a real stigma for me for the longest time. I'd always suffered from anxiety just ever since I was a kid. And it's one of those, it is really normal for children to grow out of anxiety. And I thought I was going to grow out of it. I just never grew out of it. I just kept it my whole adult life. I never wanted to go on meds or drugs or do... and I just always was like, I can handle it. And then it was that thing where I was like, it was turning 30. And I was like, I'm turning 30. Maybe I should stop. Maybe it's time to try something different. I've tried for ages to be less anxious, so maybe I should just try a different approach. And that's how that came about.
Do you think your anxiety issues ever had sort of a negative impact on the band?
I don't know if it changed any outcomes, but yeah, for sure. I was a wreck sometimes, like a total wreck. Like that, I was a massive wreck after that England tour. My anxiety was just out of control. Like just checking into an airport, I could barely keep it together. If there was any situation that had, the cat is going crazy. If there was any situation that involved too much stress, I couldn't handle it.
And you never considered treatment at that point?
No. Well, it was a bit difficult when we were on tour. The easiest thing would have just been going on drugs. But I'm never for just going on drugs anyways. I've always seen a psychologist at different times of my life. I did a few psychologist phone interviews, like sessions at the time. But and they were that was sort of good. Yeah, it was just one of those things where I was worn out and couldn't contain it.
You and Mel obviously have like an incredible chemistry together from the podcast. You've done stuff on Triple J together for Oz Music Month last year, working the crowd at the Piazza at South Bank. When you did your live podcast at the Comedy Festival in Brisbane earlier this year, you alluded to a test project you'd worked on with Triple J. Are you two getting your own show?
I really don't think so.
What was the test thing you were doing?
It was just like for fun. Just going in, just trying. We wanted to see how we would go, like, could we translate to other things? And I think we could, and I think we can, but I don't know if it's what I want to do. It's almost, in some ways, it's like, almost like a conflict of interest.
Because you're a musician?
Because of the band and radio, and the music that we make gets played on radio, and just those... Yeah, and...
They've always had musicians as announcers. They've still got Lindsay there,
yeah.
Linda Mariano. Claire Bowditch did a show for a while.
Was Linda Mariano out?
Yeah, she was in a band.
Yeah,
She left to go tour with that band for like a year.
That's right. Yeah. But I'm probably just too... I don't consider myself in, like, conflict of interest. And I also, again, there's so many rules that come with, like, being a radio presenter. Like, as you would know, at 4ZZZ.
There's a few less at Triple Z, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There's just like, there's a lot of, it'd need to be the right thing, because I feel like it's too too much wannabe patients from the Grates and not patients from
Triple J.
certain radio station.
Yeah.
And that's where the conflict of interest is that I don't want to, it's really hard for me to think about who I want to be as a person. And then just, you can't play your music can't get played during your shifts and stuff, which is fine, but I don't know how that would translate in. There's just a lot of things to consider, and it's also a real craft to radio. There's a lot of
Just too many rules.
There's a lot of rules. And I think a lot of them are great and some of them
I think that's why the podcast is so cool to me.
Because there aren't any rules.
No rules.
And I think that's what's fucked us up in a way is the podcast.
It's given you too much freedom.
It's given me way too much freedom. Like I want to talk, I want to have a break as long as John Safran. But you just can't do that. You can't do that all the time.
So the test you did do, were Triple J happy with that?
Oh, we did a bunch. Yeah, it was about learning. And we got to a really good, we were getting to a really good spot. Actually, we haven't even talked about it. We stopped doing it because Mel came back from tour. Sorry, no, Mel went away on tour. I couldn't believe it when she said that live at the podcast, though.
What?
We've been doing. I was like, "You're crazy!" Now I'm talking about it. I would have just kept it a secret. I wouldn't have told a soul. But I think Mel was probably feeling really confident. Yeah. There's definitely probably still room for Mel on any radio station, though. She's killer.
How do you think the local Brisbane scene has changed from when you started out compared to now?
I don't even know. It seems like more. We don't really go out much.
Yeah,
but it seems like it's more. People are excited more about. Like someone was telling me that the other night at Alhambra. Like it turns like bands play, but then it turns into a club straight away, and it's just like people. Like no, there wasn't really any like club vibes when we were. You'd play a show and then have some beers after the show and go home. Like that's how I felt anyway. I don't know whether that was what we were doing or whether that was what was happening with bands.
Yeah, I know that like at Rick's and stuff, they'd have that 2 a.m. slot. But they had a lot of bands and it was like just more of about bands at Rick's. Yeah, I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I can't really comment.
I can't. Yeah, I just feel like I'm too out of touch. I'm only just starting to get back in touch now. But even then, me getting in touch with what's going on now is still super out of the loop because we're in Morningside. We have bands playing in the suburbs rather than even in the valley.
Do you think we should have more venues like yours that are in the suburbs that just provide a more relaxed place for bands to play rather than having to go into the valley and abide by all these sound restrictions and everything?
Yeah, I think before we can even do that, you still got to change a bunch of sound restrictions for like boutique licenses and bars and stuff like that. Like I think a lot of that.
I don't think it will happen.
I don't think it's just so hard. And it's actually really weird, like we're in a band, but also the amount of money that you need to pay in live music licensing fees for a business in its first year is a shitload of cash. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's really there's a lot of money that you have to spend to start a business.
But no,
but not in areas that aren't even like that you don't even see. It's like licensing and well, it's mainly it's a lot of licensing.
Yeah.
It's like not just with music, but with liquor and food and like there's a lot of expenses. Like we did it really cheap, but like you couldn't do it any cheaper than we did it.
Yeah. Like we probably did the cheapest.
I wish that people with less money, like we don't have much money, but I wish people with less money could do similar types of things, but they make it too hard.
Yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, it'll be. I always think it's got to happen more. Like I always think there's got to be more people that soon start businesses that are done on a shoestring budget, that are just cool, relaxed places. Like it's really hard to compete with the bigger, cooler places that have had $1 million sunk in. Like there's a coffee shop that just opened up in our suburb that's got that classic coffee shop look. It looks like what you'd expect, and they've got the black suits, like the black outfit, like black whatever, and the signage is disgusting. It's all just like gross vinyl signs and stuff, but that is like a much more palatable coffee shop to most people than like something that's done on a shoestring budget. People are much more comfortable going into somewhere that looks like that I think's just sort of, I find that gross. But they would look into our shop and they're like, this like these, like it's weird.
Yeah.
All those weird things. So yeah, it's gonna be hard. Like they're gonna have to, for people to open up places in the suburbs more. But I think it's gotta happen But for bands in the suburbs, yeah, I think it's going to be really hard because even just us paying the licensing fees it's like barely doable because they're like thousands of dollars a year.
And you want to be able to pay bands and stuff too.
Yeah, you want to do it
and
right.
It is more risky, like putting on a show in the suburbs because like maybe 10 people will show up if no one gives a shit about your band.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like it needs to be like a sliding scale in a way. Like if the venue isn't making so much money income per year, they don't have to pay those
it should be like
or something
needs based.
Yeah, totally.
Because it's just
it should be totally based on your profit and loss.
It's like literally thousands of dollars a year just to be able to have bands play. So, like, it's good. I understand because I want people to get their APRA check and shit, but it's also it makes it really hard for a small business. That's what we have to lobby. All right, they need to change that so it's easier for people because I want there to be more entrepreneurial stuff
happening in Brisbane.
Yeah, that'd be great. That was the best time before we
we're just dreaming up ideas.
But when we signed the lease, but it didn't, like when we signed the agreement to lease, which is the first very small legal lease, then you have to work out a much bigger lease. That was the cruisiest time because we couldn't go inside the shop and work on it. Like there was no point in just like going out and buying paint and everything before you could get inside. And then we tried to just do demos as much as we could in that month or whatever it was when we did the agreement to lease and the lease, or 2 weeks even. We were just like, this is going to be the last time for ages that we can just chill, drink beers in the middle of the day and write music.
And has it been?
It was.
It was.
The very last time we were able to pick up an instrument.
So you've been really busy at the South Side for the last year or so and like patience with your other projects, like the Minutes specifically. And that's, start to go on the road, even doing live shows. Can you see a time in the future where you just don't go back to music and you're completely content with the other things that are going on in your life where you just stop?
Maybe in like 5 or 10 years.
Like
for sure.
It just depends on how.
I always like doing it, but then I love that we get to do other things that are just as rewarding. They reward me in the same way. Like I'm getting the same thing out of all of these other things, so it doesn't really matter what avenue.
But they also I feel like they contribute like to people, even though Southside doesn't actually contribute to Australia. Like, I guess in some ways it's really sweet when somebody loves your music that's a teenager in Woy Woy or something like that's cool that you get to have that. I love the rewards of being in the band, but I also love that's what's cool. Like I love being able to show people a different way of thinking. That's really fun.
But that is like the rewarding thing about it.
Yeah, it's true.
That is the most exciting thing for me.
And sometimes I'm like desire to be the female Wayne Coyne because he's just like old and grey and still got it and it's just awesome. And then other times I'm like, maybe you'll just be old and grey and you should just let somebody young with young person ideas just do it.
But Wayne Coyne does a bunch of stuff that's not just musical too.
Totally. So Wayne Coyne's
I'd love to be like
my hero.
Wayne Coyne of Brisbane.
Yeah, he's like, we both want to be Wayne Coyne.
Yeah, just they're doing whatever we want.
Yeah. But it seems like you guys are on the way to doing that already.
Wayne Coyne? Oh, stop it, Scott.
I mean, you've got a body of work, your music that you've done, and now you're sort of creating opportunities for other people with Southside, and you're branching out into all different things, into podcasting and that. Do you sort of look back and, like Patience, you turned 30 recently. John, you're going to this year?
I did last year.
Oh, you did last year, yeah. Do you look back with a real sense of achievement at what you've accomplished?
Yeah, definitely. I don't look back that often, but like every now, it's awesome. We have a cool house. We got a cool cat.
When I look back, I get scared because I almost feel like I didn't do any of it. Like it just blows my mind that I did it.
What do you mean you didn't do any of it?
Like at the time, it's like a lot of effort. Like you know that it's a lot of work, but then when you do look back, it's just a big blur. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'm like, whoa, I got to tour countries and stuff like that, and I just.
Like I had pneumonia like for a tour in America and it was like the worst ever. Like at the time it was like the worst my life's ever been. And now I like it's a blur. It's like I've got no emotion connected to it or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, you were like close to dying.
Do you have plans to record a 4th album anytime soon, or will it just be when things settle down with Southside?
Yeah, I think it'll just
like when we can.
When we can. We're always we're trying to make time to write music.
Is there any pressure at all from the label to, guys, get back to work? You had your fun.
A little bit last week. So we'll see. Yeah, like last week they were like, okay, let's hear some more music now. And we were like, yeah, still need a couple of months. Still need a couple of months at Southside just creating space.
Do you think you could have lived your lives any other way? Like, would you be functional people if you weren't doing creative things?
No.
I'm barely functional now,
Yeah.
so it doesn't really, as far as functionality goes, probably not. I don't know what else I don't really, it's weird. I just don't know what, I think about it and I don't know what else I would have done. Like I don't even know.
Just would have kept trying things.
I know you would have kept trying things.
I would have just kept trying things.
I don't know what I just would have been.
That's what I was doing before the band.
Yeah, I would have just been somebody's like charismatic wife at a party that walked around being like, ha 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 ha, and how are you today, sir? Like that would have been my stage. It was just a social event once every 3 weeks.
If you could give any advice to yourself at the age of like 19 or 20 when you were starting out, what would it be?
Relax.
Yeah. Try and relax.
It'll pass. Just relax. Yeah.
I would have probably said go on antidepressants like 7 years earlier.
Actually, maybe I would have said that as well. Seek some anxiety help.
Yep.
You have an anxiety disorder. Treat it.
You were signed to Due Process, and you've always been supported by those guys. And they started in 2003, but they're probably the last major indie label to really get up in Australia. Do you think there's still a place for the concept of a record label in music these days?
Yeah, but I don't like
not in the way it
but
was.
Yeah, not in the way like it doesn't. You don't need to go down that path. Like it's like you can go down a path with way less rules where you can do whatever you want, and it's just as likely to work out for you almost.
Well, I just kind of
If you
feel like
if you kind of bring the right people into it.
Yeah, but I also feel like as the years will go on, I feel like the amount of success that you can get from a record label is probably similar to the amount of success you might be able to just get on your own, because the amount of success is probably getting smaller and smaller with the way it's just becoming more and more niche in some ways. But then at the same time, I do think what's great about having a record label is you not having to do everything.
And for really big things, you need it.
You totally need it for any,
like distribution and things like that. Or?
Yeah, just they get the big picture.
But like for stuff overseas, like territories that you don't know anything about, or them understanding like the cycle of, where things work with press and stuff. Like it becomes less and less important with the internet being like way more of a force than it was. Like iTunes hadn't launched when our first album came out in Australia, so it was weird.
It was cool. We were super lucky to get on the tail end of CD sales still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like definitely lucky a bit. Like I think it was timing. I think we really benefited from the end of CDs. The last gasp of
there's no way
rich music industry.
There's no way that we would be living in our own house if we hadn't have released a CD in 2006.
So I think what happened, like we got a really good publishing deal, like on our first record, and then we got to buy like a house, and that's just given us like a freedom that I don't think we would have had if our record came out in 2008 rather than 2006.
Yeah,
I think we were just like we're very lucky with timing.
Yeah,
and that's like totally changed our lives.
We were literally the last strand of hair of getting a publishing deal that had any substantial amount of money in it. Like these days,
taking a gamble, taking a gamble on something weird.
There's a lot less weird stuff on the radio because I think the money pool for bands is so much smaller that there's like the people that want to get on the radio and want to be successful know that money pool's smaller, so they're trying to write to access that little bit of money that's left, that's available to get. And then I think then there's other dudes like that just know, like DZ, that are just like, we're not going to get shit out of this, so we're just going to do it any way we can and just do whatever we want.
Go hard and go home.
Yeah. If you get a publishing deal for bands these days, you can't buy a house. It's like you use it to go on tour.
Or buy some gear.
Or you buy some gear or you buy that. It's nothing. There's not enough left over after you buy some gear to be able to buy a house. We don't own this house entirely, but we stuck a good deposit down on it, and it's really cool. So it's really, it's a total different thing for bands, but I think we were just really lucky. We made some good decisions, and we were very lucky.
Patience and John, thank you for talking to us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Good luck with the rest of these interviews. I'm really excited that you guys are doing it.
So there it is. That interview, or most of the content of that interview, has lain unheard on my hard drive for the last 5 years. I did edit it down to a very abridged 1-hour version at one point and played it on my radio show, Exit Stage Z, on 4ZZZ, when the Grates' fourth album, Dream Team, came out. I wish I talked to them after Dream Team came out, actually, because I really love that album, and it was the first album they'd recorded in Australia. It's so different to the rest of them, but I love it so much. If you want to hear more of Patience's hilarious anecdotes, she has her own podcast called The Minutes that she co-hosts with the comedian Mel Buttle. And there's also a spin-off podcast where they give advice to people called You're Welcome. It's not a very active podcast, hasn't been updated in a very long time, but there's a considerable backlog from the early days. It's very, very entertaining if you want to listen to that. As well as putting out their fourth album. Since this interview was recorded, Patience and John have had 2 children, and they're still very busy running Southside Tea Room. They run Death Valley Fun Camp, which is like a school camp, but for grown-ups, and they're very, very busy people. I hope they'll make more music again at some point. Sometimes they come out of hiding for a show or two. But you know what? If they never make music again, they've done enough. I think they've earned they've earned the right to ride off into the sunset, out to Morningside and run their little cafe and raise their kids and do that. The Grates had a huge impact on me musically. They still inspire me with their wackiness, and I was very lucky to get to sit down and talk to them 5 years ago. If this is the first episode of Give Me Empathy you've listened to, I've got heaps more. Check out the back catalogue. There's a bunch of... I've talked to over 30 people now for it. Some of them are locally famous like the Grates. Some are just my friends. Some are a bit of both. Lots of people in your life have interesting things to say if you point a microphone at them and offer them a cup of tea. Until next time, stay great. Yeah.